morning, everyone. I'd like to call this special call meeting to order with background music. All right. We normally do have an invocation. We don't have anybody here at this time because of social distancing and whatnot, so we'll just take a moment of silence, please.
If she can, that's fine. If she's included, then I don't know if everything she don't have.
All right, if you wouldn't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please.
Viera, Goods, Carlson,
Here.
Dingfelder,
Here.
Citro,
Here.
Miranda,
Here.
and Escalzo.
Here. All right, may I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, before we begin, we have a few items that are not to be heard today. We have item number 4, item number 5, and item number 6. If we can have a motion to reschedule those for September 17th, 2020 at 10:30 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Councilman Citro with the motion, second from Councilman Carlson. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Councilman Vieira has let me know that he will be just a few minutes late this morning, but he will be joining us, and Councilmember Goods will be absent for today's meetings. All right. We begin with item number 1. Do we have to swear in the, anyone that wishes to speak, Mr. Shelby?
Yes, I think you should swear in the people
All
in
right,
the
if
room.
you are going to speak on any of the items on the agenda that we have not rescheduled, please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated.
All right, we'll begin with item number 1.
And Mr. Chairman, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, I became aware that the petitioner in this case may want to request a continuance, the one who's seeking the review. I don't know whether council wants to take that up early and see if what council's pleasure is.
All right, who would like to make the, if there is someone who wants to make the continuance, if they approach the lectern?
Oh, I have to take my mask off? Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, sir. Please state your name and spell
My
it
name is
for the
Brian
record.
Curry. I'm item number 1. Because full council is not present, we would like to ask for a continuance.
All right, do you have a specific date for that? We rescheduled
well,
these other items for September 17th.
Councilman Goods, we know won't be back for, we don't know how long. And so I understand you all are on hiatus the month of July, or most of it. So therefore, it would have to be, I think, in August.
Well,
Is that
we
right?
have September 17th is where we've rescheduled the other items from this morning. Do you want
Okay.
to push it off till then, just to keep everything in order so we?
If that's what you prefer, that's fine.
All right. Is there?
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, on file number E 2028 CH17, I'd like to move for continuance till September 17th, 9 a.m.
All right, Mr.
Excuse me,
Carroll.
if I can, Mr. Chairman. I believe it would be appropriate, for it to be 10:30. Is 17th is a, Madam Clerk, that is a Thursday regular session, so it would be 10:30.
10:30, Mr. Chair.
All right, yes, ma'am.
And, excuse me, Mr. Chair, Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department. I believe there are some representatives from the property owner here as well.
Okay.
It might be your pleasure to hear from them.
All right, if you'd
regarding
like
the
to come, all right,
continuance
sir, we
date.
have the motion on the table, but we would like to hear from the other folks as well, so. No, you're good, you're good.
I'm good.
The other side's gonna come. up.
Okay.
And then Councilman Dingfelder.
That was what I was going to say.
Okay, go ahead, sir, if you would state your,
Sir, if you could use the podium on the right, sir.
we alternate the lecterns in between speakers, so we sanitize one and, you know.
Excellent. We appreciate the efforts. So my name is R.J. Hoy. I'm a lawyer for the property owner, and this has already been moved once. We've got the property manager here, and so we think it's ripe for consideration, and we'd like the council to move forward today.
All right, Councilman Dingfelder, do you have any other comments?
No, I'm having a little trouble. I want everybody to be careful and use the masks as much as possible, but I'm having a little trouble hearing people through the mask.
All right.
So.
Fair enough. Would you like me to repeat that?
Yes, please.
Councilman Dinkfelder? Still getting used to this thing. So again, my name is RJ Hoy. I'm an attorney. I represent the property owner, and this has already been moved once, obviously due to circumstances beyond anyone's control from the March meeting. We've got the property manager, another business owner in the same complex, all here today, and there's a quorum. We'd ask that we go ahead and proceed today.
And
Go ahead, sir.
are you guys in favor or opposed to the proposal, to the petition?
We're opposed to Mr. Curry's petition to overturn the administrative approval. The administrative approval should stand for the AB1 permit.
Okay, thank you.
This is to reschedule the hearing instead of having it today for September 17th. It's not a final decision on anything, it's just to postpone it.
No, I understand. That's
Okay.
what I was saying. We're hoping and, have showed up today to support, to oppose Mr. Curry's petition. So we're just asking that it go ahead and be heard today. So, it obviously affects the property.
Sure.
And, we don't think there's a basis, so I don't think, the delay in time is going to change the facts. So
Mr. Chairman?
We'd oppose the continuance, that's all.
I do have a question.
Wait, Councilman Miranda, then Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 5 members instead of 7. I understand the request for continuation. I don't know what happened on the first deferment of March 19th. However, by the statement you made, Mr. Chairman, that Mr. Vieira will be here in a few minutes, I'd like to clear it up that if Mr. Vieira comes and there's 6 of us, will that petitioner who came, Mr. Curry, I believe, and said he wants to continue because there's only 5, would that be acceptable to one side? I would imagine it would be acceptable to the other side. We have 6 members instead of 5.
We'll ask Mr. Curry, if we have 6, if you would approach the other lectern, if we have 6 members, would you be comfortable, or do you want a full 7-member board?
Let me just say that the rules call if we have 4, that's automatic. If we have 5, that's questionable. But with 6, in my opinion, it's not questionable.
Okay.
Right, but as it says in the guidelines for a quasi-judicial hearing, if the motion fails to receive at least 4 votes, and so missing at least 1 member that we are familiar with what his stance on things were, we still want to ask for a continuance.
Then we would have to take a vote up here, and we have a motion then from Councilman Citro. Do we have a second on this motion to continue?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
A question. I believe it was Councilman Miranda who suggested perhaps waiting to see whether the petitioner wants, or did you want to have action on the motion on the floor, Mr. Miranda?
I said it earlier before it came up that I'm fine with 6. I'm not fine with 5 because it mathematically becomes kind of hard to get, you got 5, all you need is 2 to object or one way or the other, either way. And I want to be as fair as I can to both petitioners, the one for and the one that on the other side against. And I think with 6 it's acceptable with me, with 5 it's not.
Okay. So we have a,
Mr. Chair, with that said, if all concerned don't mind waiting until Councilman Vieira gets here, I will withdraw my motion.
all right, so what we'll do is we'll wait for Councilman Vieira to get here. He will be here in a few minutes. He was just running a little bit late, and we'll move on to item number 2, and then we'll come back to item number 1 if you wouldn't mind waiting, and we'll revisit this today and take up the motion so we have 1 more member, just out of fairness, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to item number 2 then.
Good morning, Kate Wells with the Office of the City Attorney. This item is before you on a petition seeking review of a variance review board decision made during its meeting on December 10th of 2019. I have provided counsel with the hearing procedures for today's review as well as sample motions, and on the back side of the sample motions you will find the hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80. Pursuant to section 27-61, subsection J2, City Council applies the de novo standard of review during today's hearing. Your decision is not limited to the record created during the VRB hearing. Instead, you can take public testimony, accept new evidence, and make a decision based upon the application meeting the hardship criteria in section 27-80. The materials attached to the agenda include a copy of the initial application filed with the VRB, the staff report, the VRB's written decision, the petition for review, and an affidavit establishing compliance with the notice requirements. The application filed with the Variance Review Board requested 2 variances: a rear yard variance from 20 feet to 10 feet to allow an unpermitted structure to remain. The VRB denied that variance by a decision of 4-3. The second variance was for a reduction in the side yard setback from 7 feet to 3 feet to allow an above-ground pool to remain. The VRB denied this variance by a 7-0 vote. After considering all of the evidence introduced into the record of today's hearing, City Council may approve the VRB's decision to deny the variances. City Council may overturn the VRB's decision and approve one or both variances with or without conditions, or City Council may remand this back to the Variance Review Board. With that, I will turn the presentation over to Roberta Meade Curry. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Council. Roberta Meade Curry, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Let me know if you can't hear me from the station, please. I'm going to basically review the same presentation we did at the variance review hearing. So again, the case number is VRB 19-108. The address is 3305 West Abdallah Street. This section under review that evening was 27-156. The applicant was seeking to reduce the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 10 feet. The other section was 27-290.3 to reduce the side yard setback from 7 feet to 3 feet to allow for the existing above-ground pool. The property was zoned RS50. They can't hear me?
Maybe just pull it a little closer.
Okay. Yes, let me know if you can hear me. Is that better?
Yep.
This is the property appraiser record. Page 1, whoops. Page 2. Variance map. Again, the property is located here, Abdallah Street along here, and the surrounding properties are RS50. Looking west down the street. This is a close-up of the east side of the property, and the pool sat behind this wall here. This is the west side yard. A closer view of the west side yard, and this is the addition in question here. Survey, again, this is the existing house with the addition here. The pool was located here with the request for the side setback, and the rear setback request is here. The applicant did notice properly. This is the decision of the Variance Review Board hearing. And again, there was some confusion at the hearing where there was an existing permit. The permit was reviewed and disapproved, and it was eventually closed because the time had expired. So the permit was never officially issued for this project. And also the permit was pulled for a detached structure, which was 600 square feet. I have that information here. It's hard to read. And And again, difficult to read, I'm sorry. I'll zoom in. But this is basically the timeframes for the review. The permit received a disapproval on 12/16/2014, and it was expired by a notice to the applicant on 11/23/2015. And then the property was cited for code enforcement violations in 2018. I have nothing further to add to the record.
Thank you very much. Councilman Carlson.
Just to clarify, so they built it without a permit, right? And what year did they build it? Did I miss that?
From what we understand, the citing for the code enforcement violation was in January of 2018. I don't know when they started the construction for the addition.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Ms. Otero Cosillo. From what I read in the record, the hearing, the fact that the city of Tampa provided an interpreter did not act on the application for the best interest. Is that why we're here?
Okay, answer me, I'm sorry.
That it said the interpreter did not accurately provide the applicant testimony for the VRB board. Is that the reason we're here?
Francisco Otero Cosillo, yes, my understanding is during the hearing, there was an interpreter provided by the city of Tampa, which I believe is no longer with the city of Tampa for several reasons of complaints. And it was my understanding from the city of Tampa staff and my client that whatever she said at the hearing wasn't interpreted right at the hearing. And there were several witnesses saying that what she had said was totally different than what he interpreted. And then basically, per her, that made an impact on the decision of the city council.
I believe everything you say, but I don't know about the other council members. I'm not privy to the fact. I'm sure there's a hearing of this where I can determine if the interpreter was truthful or not, being bilingual myself like you are.
Yes.
I could accurately support that, but I don't have that thing before me where I can.
And then also too, to clarify, I mean, that does make sense, but I don't get misinterpreted. It was not that he wasn't truthful, it was just the way it was interpreted really sounded.
Well, that's what I want to see. I want to
Yeah.
see not only the word, but the body language.
I understand.
You know, I hear everything people say.
Yes.
I believe most what they don't say.
Yes, sir.
And the second thing is, there's one thing that was left off that I see in the testimony I just heard. There's another structures I see, metal building to the left or to the west of the structure. And it seems to me, and I may be wrong, but once I see between the two palm trees a structure, and on top I see another little item, it seems to me it's a trailer with air conditioning. Is that a fact or not?
I don't have that picture. Can you show me the picture in question?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Kate Wells with the
Yes.
City Attorney's Office. With regard to the concerns expressed by the petitioner with the quality of the interpretation services at the VRB, that is the basis for the request today to have this matter heard. And, you know, that's a legitimate basis in that if someone feels their due process rights were violated, that is an appropriate basis to seek review before City Council. I will remind Council that you are not limited to the record of the VRB hearing, and you get to take testimony and evidence today and sit in the shoes of the Variance Review Board and make a decision with regard to the applications meeting the burden of proof with regard to the hardship criteria in Section 27-80. So with regard to the quality of services provided at the VRB hearing, I would submit that while that was a basis to get the application before you today, you're not bound by the VRB's decision. So those concerns, I would submit, don't justify either a need to delay this or remand it back. You can consider this application based upon its merits with the same hardship criteria that the VRB had applied.
So, and I'm sorry because the ceiling is so high, I have trouble hearing, not because of my age, just the distance. But, so then we can continue in asking these questions because there's other questions I would like to ask about the structure that was addition to the young man who had trouble by an accident.
Yes, it would be appropriate today to take testimony both from the petitioner and if there's anybody else from the public that wishes to speak on this item as it relates to the hardship criteria in the code. So yes,
Okay.
this is a public hearing where you're not limited to the record below.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just another
Go ahead.
minute or two. Since you're the gentleman who's representing the petitioner, I assume.
Yes.
On the addition, is there a separate interest for the addition?
No, it's attached to the house.
Pardon me?
No, it's a separate, no, there's,
Separate entrance for the addition?
no, well, there's two, where you can access from inside the house and from outside the house.
Okay, then the next question, are there any kitchen, is there a kitchen in there or not?
No.
Guido, you should
To
make
my,
the
to my
presentation.
understanding, there is no, and then I'm not an attorney.
No.
I'm a consultant.
Neither am I.
I'm a licensed builder.
Jumping the gun.
But the reason I took this case, because I felt basically that the main, and it's getting, let me explain, it's getting, to answer your question, I'm just giving you.
Sir,
some background.
before you continue, this goes into your, why don't we just go into your presentation, you explain yourself, and
Okay.
then,
Oh, I'm
you know,
sorry.
No, no, we'll go.
No, I don't
I
mind
yield back to
answering.
the petitioner.
Let's just start from scratch.
Okay.
Yeah,
If
so
I-
you
if I-
have your 15 minutes to present, and we'll go from there, and then we'll continue.
Okay.
I
Mr. Chairman,
apologize,
before
Mr. Chairman.
before we do that, Mr. Chairman, Martin Shelby, there's one matter that I just want to clean up for the record and bring to council's attention. The code does require that when you hear these hearings from a lower board decision, that the petitioner brings a CD that gets put into the record. That is something that is still within the code, but it's a vestige from something that is not legally required. I've been informed that the gentleman who's representing the petitioner today does not have the CD present. So the question before council, and I've had a chance to discuss this with Ms. Wells, being that we are in a state of emergency, we are under different circumstances here. If council wishes to proceed to allow a waiver to that section, that the CD, he can move forward without the CD if that's council's pleasure. If council does say that it is a requirement and it does want that in the record, then it would require a continuance. Just wanted to let you
I'll
know.
move to waive the requirement of the CD.
Second.
All right, we have a
I
motion.
can't, excuse me, if I may, I like to support that, but I can't because my opening statement was about the continuation based on the interpreter. There was not an adequate provided to the applicant's testimony during the VRB, and if I don't have the CD to look at, then I don't know how I can vote.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
just in furtherance of my motion, I'm going to move to waive the CD. Mr. Miranda, with all due respect, Ms. Wells has now informed us that the interpretation question got them here today, but it becomes moot after that because it's not the basis of our decision. Worse, now, today, we are going to be the VRB all over again, if I'm correct, Ms. Wells. So with that, Mr. Miranda, I agree with you completely. Normally, we'd want to hear it and we'd want to see it, but Ms. Wells is telling us that's not the issue today. The issue is, should they be allowed these two variances? We have to look at it from scratch. So with that, I'll make the motion to waive the tape, the CD requirement, and I think I have a second.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. The basis that the petitioner is given us is that the interpretation was improper. The petitioner did not offer up any other evidence on why this should be overturned. Therefore, I'm saying if Ms. Wells is going to approach the microphone, I would like to remand this back to the proper board to hear it again so that there is a proper interpretation of this.
If I may, Kate Wells with the City Attorney's Office, I think that decision needs to be made after the petitioner is given an opportunity
Okay,
to make
right.
his presentation. And again, the City Council on these de novo reviews, you sit in the shoes of the VRB, so you get to take testimony today, you take evidence today, you can make a decision today based upon the same hardship criteria that the Variance Review Board did. But we have yet to hear from the petitioner and why he feels that the application does meet the hardship criteria. So I would submit to you if you could allow the petitioner to move forward before making a decision.
Mr. Shelby.
Yes, and one further comment, and this goes back to Councilman Miranda's questioning of the petitioner. Without the original applicant here, You are, in effect, relying on hearsay, potentially, and not have firsthand knowledge of what this person is required to state under oath. And I'm suggesting to you that you take that into account because you have to weigh the evidence and you have to base your decision upon competent, substantial evidence in the record. If this person does not have the knowledge necessary, then you have to weigh that in your consideration. So if you have any questions related to the specific facts of the case as it relates to the hardship criteria, you have to determine what it will take for you to get your questions answered.
Okay. We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder with a second. Do we still have the second? Second from Councilman Vieira. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right.
Motion carried with Miranda voting no and Hughes being absent.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yes, sir.
I just want to ask staff one quick question. In the petition, or petition application, the petitioner talks about her son having had some kind of injury. Are there any ADA requirements that we need to consider in this, or should we be thinking through that as we're watching it, or not?
Again, Roberta Mead Curry, Planning and Design and Development Coordination. There was no specific request for that during the VRB hearing. We were not aware of the type of injury the child had.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll move forward. You, sir, have 15 minutes to present, and then we will ask questions. Go ahead.
Good morning. Francisco Otero Cosil again. I'd like to start off by answering that question is, yeah, her son did have injuries, but he unfortunately passed away from those injuries in a motorcycle accident. So he's no longer with us. So I can start my presentation now.
Yes, sir, you have 15 minutes. Go ahead.
Basically, the original petition was to reduce the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 10 feet, and that's still in place. And the second request was the side yard setback from 7 to 3 feet to vest an above-ground pool. The pool has been removed, so that request, we'd like to withdraw that since the pool doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, originally, the reason why we were here is that the addition was done illegally. I got involved with this because I'm not an attorney, I'm a licensed builder. And the first thing that I told her was that, if the variance does get approved, we will have to go back to the city of Tampa and, apply for the proper permits. There is no, from my understanding, I know you cannot have two kitchens in that zoning. So if there was a kitchen, basically it will have to be removed during permitting. And then second, I don't know if I could present new evidence today, but I do have basically letters from the neighbor to the rear, the one that's being most affected by the 10-foot setback. And I have the petition, letters from the neighbor in the rear and the sides and across the street in support of the petition. And I would now like to clarify some things about the reason of the interpreter. Is basically at the hearing, I was under my understanding from my client and from the city that during the hearing, there were some things that she had said. At the time, she basically wasn't all there because she had, like I said, her son had a motorcycle accident. He was in bad condition, which he eventually passed away. So during the hearing, when they had asked her question, and the interpreter was there, she had answered a question about if the variance was approved, do you understand that you would need to acquire the proper permits? And per her, what she told me was that she said yes, but I think from the testimony that it was given, the interpreter basically responded no. So that was the misinterpretation. But she's well aware that if this variance is approved, that she would still have to go back to the city of Tampa, submit the proper plans, and get it permitted. Now, whatever is built there now, I think basically, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but if the way the construction is built now and it doesn't meet code for some reason, for any little thing, an extra kitchen, that will be rectified other than the setback in the building plans. I will build it to code. So that's my presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions from board members?
Yes.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you. How about what was it, an above-ground swimming pool?
Yes, it was above ground swimming pool. When I got the case, the pool was already gone.
Oh, the
So
pool's-
I never saw it.
So the
yes.
pool's a non-issue, and she's pulling out of the request for the pool?
Yes, well, I don't know if that's the proper term, pulling out, but the pool, I guess there was a violation also, the pool doesn't exist, so I guess by removing the pool, there's, that violation is complied with.
Okay, well, okay, so she wouldn't need the variance?
No, the only variance still in question is the 20 feet to 10 feet.
20 feet to 10 feet?
Yes, so now we're at 10 feet.
And we don't have a whole lot of backup on this, or at least I don't. What was the purpose of this addition, to the best of your knowledge? When was
Yes.
it built?
I met with her, it was a referral from a friend of mine, that he was handling her case for the auto accident. And I have a letter from her, basically, the addition was, her son was gonna move in with her at the time. And she's a single mom with another daughter. You know, the house is pretty small, and he was definitely, if he survived or didn't survive, he was definitely gonna need, lifetime help. So that was the additions for that. Then also too, is, like I said, that the house is small, so the addition was to expand the living area of the house.
And to the best of your knowledge, when was the addition built?
That I'll be honest with you, I don't know.
Okay, there was some.
But I do know there was a record of a permit being submitted for it in 2018.
I think I saw
Yeah, that
2000.
expired, I guess, already, yeah.
Roberta, was that 2014?
Yes, it was 2014 when the permit was originally submitted.
And it never went anywhere, and it got denied by?
It was disapproved by city review staff, and then they sent a notice that it was expiring.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
like I said, at this stage, if it does get approved now, we would definitely start from scratch.
If we remanded this back to the VRB, hopefully she would get an interpreter of her own choice, you or somebody else, so she's comfortable with that. Because, I mean, I can see, the difficulties. Mr. Citro and I, having sat on the VRB in the past, it's not always easy with the interpreter. But anyway, hopefully she would have an interpreter of her own choice and be comfortable with that, and really make a clear understanding of what the hardship might be, because we haven't heard a whole lot of issue about what her hardship is today. Now, as Mr. Shelby pointed out, it might be difficult for you to testify as to hardship because you'd be doing it in the third person, it'd be hearsay. So, I don't know. I see a couple of good reasons, as Mr. Citro and Mr. Miranda pointed out, perhaps to send this back for remand.
Thank you very much. Councilman Miranda, then
Thank you.
Councilman
Just
Carlson.
go back, and I apologize for speaking earlier before the testimony. He is now complete. He's presented the case to the council. Two questions based on the same line of thought. Were you there at the hearing?
No,
Okay. Have you seen the video yourself of the hearing?
no, I have not.
So then everything you're saying is somebody else has told you that. Am I correct?
Yes. Part of it from my client and part of it from
Yeah,
the city staff.
from whatever. So what I'm trying to get legally, I'm trying to set the basis. I don't see how legally we can take the action of the basis for this council to either approve or reject this based on testimony that it's hearsay from a third party, and the presenter has not seen the video and wasn't there at the hearing, number one. And number two, nothing has been said about the building of the structure to the west of the building that, to me, it looks like a trailer. You can ask your client if she's here, is that a trailer?
No, my understanding is not a trailer.
Nobody's here but you?
Yes.
Is that a trailer on the property to the west side?
To be honest with you, that's something I will have to.
Pardon me?
No, I don't know.
So you haven't seen the property either?
Oh, yeah, I've seen the property, but the way you presented it, it's a trailer.
I mean,
I don't
there's
know.
a building, there's got to be
Yeah, I don't think
8
it's
to
a trailer.
10 feet wide, maybe 20 feet long.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
trying to
don't-
be
I don't-
hard
I
on
don't
you,
believe
but
it's a trailer. I mean,
I stop right here, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right,
I'll hang it up.
Councilman Carlson.
I think you said you're a contractor, a building contractor.
Yes.
Do you know who built this? Was there a licensed contractor who built it, or?
I don't know. Like I said, I came involved after the original VRB was already built for some time now, and I just came in
Okay, thank you.
to rectify the.
Thank you very much.
Get in compliance.
All right, Councilman
And
Citro.
and if I may add something too, I mean, if, I'm okay too, where we're having a continuance, and then I provide the, whatever you need, the tape, you know, I have I don't have a problem with not providing the tape. This is my first appeal, and I just really forgot that I needed to bring the tape.
What was brought up was to send it back to the variance review board and start
Yeah,
from scratch at
yeah,
that
I'm
point,
up-
not continue it here, but
Yeah.
take it to the,
I'm up for anything. I just feel that this lady's been through a lot, and she put her trust in me to get this rectified for her.
Sure.
So whatever, you know, want to do my best job for her.
all right.
If that
Coun-
makes sense.
Councilman Citro?
If the petitioner is going to ask to be remanded back to VRB, I have no questions, if that
Okay.
is his intent.
Would you, well, anybody else wish to speak? Anybody else have any comments, questions?
Unless there's somebody in the public.
Is there anyone in the public that is here on this item? I don't believe so. No? All right. Would you then like to have this remanded back to the variance review board and start from scratch there, where she can have another opportunity and pick the interpreter of her choice? And
Yes, I have no problem with that.
it just, I mean, I
Yeah.
think it,
Yeah,
my opinion.
I feel at this point is the best thing. And like I said, my job is to provide a good service for her, because she's been through a lot, and I really want to get this approved for her, so if that's.
And we wanna be-
That looks, to answer your question, yes.
I'll
All
move
right.
to remand.
Motion to
Mr.
close,
Shelby.
please. Motion to close, please.
Let's get a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now that that's closed, Councilman Dingfelder, you
Yeah,
have a motion?
I'll move to remand, especially on the basis of this translation issue. It wouldn't help me to listen to the tape, because unfortunately, je parle français un peu, but not Spanish, so,
Yeah.
but anyway, so I'll move to remand back and have a nice, clean hearing with hopefully an interpreter of your choice, and maybe with your help in that process, and if it comes back, we'll decide on the merits later.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder, second from Councilman Carlson. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll vote for remand if the city of Tampa has the right to go back and re-inspect the property, including the west side.
Yes, sir. We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder, second from Councilman Carlson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, sir. It's going to go back to the variance review board, and she'll have another opportunity, you will too, and pick the interpreter of your choice and however you wish, so everything is fair and legal.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Councilmember Vieira here with us today, so we'll go back to item number 1. The motion was from
And I
Mr.
apologize for my lateness. I was lost because I went to the old parking space, so I get lost in my own house. So.
Yep. So we had a motion from Mr. Curry because we do not have a full council of 7 members, although what's required is at least an automatic continuance is with 4 members, with 5 members, then you can bring up a motion to continue. But we have 6 members here. The motion from Mr. Curry was to continue, or the request was for us to continue this item to September 17, 2020. Is there any board discussion on that now that we have 6 people here? Is
So,
there a,
Mr. Chairman, where does that leave us legally in terms of our procedure? And we have 6 members. What does our procedure say?
Rule 6C says if at a quasi-judicial public hearing, only 4 members of city council are available to take action, then any petitioner shall have the right to continue the matter until there are a minimum of 5 members. If there is less than a full city council, then a petitioner may request to continue a matter, but it will not be as a matter of right. So it's your discretion based on whatever evidence you might weigh relative to why the continuance should be granted. And of course, the petitioner, the original applicant, did raise a concern and objection to that.
all right, so the original applicant wishes to move forward, but we have a request from another member of the public to continue this, so it's up to the board. Is there a motion to continue this to September 17, 2020 at 10:30 a.m.?
Mr. Chairman, if I can just clarify for the record, that other member of the public is somebody who is within the noticed area,
Okay.
who filed an appeal from a zoning administrator's decision. So that person does have the legal right to be here on the basis of being an aggrieved party to challenge the decision.
Okay.
I have a procedural question.
Wait, yes, ma'am.
Oh, and I just wanted to piggyback on what Mr. Shelby said. Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department, the petitioner is Mr. Curry. So the original applicant is here, but he's not the petitioner under your petition for review. So the petitioner for review is the one seeking the continuance,
Okay,
if that clarifies.
yes, sir. Councilman Dingfelder.
Susan, Ms. Johnson-Velez, I'm looking at the original application going all the way back to, let's see, I can't find a date on it. But anyway, it's part of the documents that I have in front of us. The original applicant was Duckweed Liquors, Inc. In reading some of the correspondence, it appears that Duckweed is no longer the proposed tenant. Has that application been transferred to a subsequent tenant and a
Well-
subsequent petitioner?
Well, it's my understanding too that Duckweed Market is no longer involved with the property. However, the approval does go with the land. So it runs with the land and it applies to the property itself, not to.
But they never got approved, right?
There was an approval of an AB1 special use permit, which is what is before you for review today under the petition for
Oh,
review.
they got approved through staff, not through
AB1.
this body.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, so now the approval is on the land, and the property owner, or the property owner's representative is here on behalf of the property owner to
That's correct.
continue defending this approval.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
All right. Mr. Shelby? No?
Mr.
Councilman
Chair, if I
Sisson.
may,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Ms. Susan? Sorry, I caught you right before you sat down.
That's all right.
We did hear similar before. Can you tell us the difference between what we heard before and this petition?
Well, it's my understanding, and perhaps Eric would be the best person because he followed it throughout the process. So I'll ask Mr. Cotton to come and explain.
Thank you, Ms. Susan. And Mr. Cotton, if you could explain to me at least, why this was an administrative decision or is a administrative decision as opposed to a council decision, what were the differences between what we may have heard before and today?
Great question.
Eric Cotton, Planning and Development. The substantive portion of the request is probably going to be the same. In section 27-132 for alcohol approval, there's spells out staff approvals and there's council approvals depending upon what the person's requesting. I don't want to go too deep into the request since we haven't started the hearing yet, but under 27-132 for alcoholic beverage types, application is processing as a special use one, which is the AB1 process, includes shoppers goods, convenience, gasoline, specialty retail, craft distillery, retail package only. And one of the criteria is that the sales have to be incidental to shoppers goods establishments. So like a package store has to be incidental to a grocery store. So a package store by itself would come before city council. A package store that is a grocery store that has a packaged component would be reviewed administratively because the package store can't survive without the grocery store itself. So the applicant originally applied for an AB2. It was based on the previous zoning administrator's determination. When that ZA retired and another ZA took over, that person's interpretation was you can go through the SU1 or the AB1 process. The applicant took that opportunity to go through the AB1 process, remove themselves from council's agenda, withdrew that original application, went through the administrative process and received approval.
And if my question is, again, something similar that we may have heard in this, is the difference between that and this, is there is a different entrance? Is there?
Correct.
Is it
Package
totally
store-
totally different, separated from
Correct.
what may be next door?
Right, if you're familiar with, I'm going to use Publix as an example, like the Publix on Neptune has a package store. By state regulations, the package store has to have a separate entrance, and it has to be a separate facility, it has to be a separate component of the overall grocery store. You remember, I guess it was either this past legislative session or the one before, they had the whiskey and Wheaties bill that would allow allow grocery stores to sell liquor. That failed, so the rules are still the same. The package store has to be a separate component from the grocery store. But the package store can't survive through the AB1 process without the grocery store being there.
Thank you, Mr. Cotton.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of council in request to the continuance? Is there a motion to continue this to September 17th? Councilman Dingfelder.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little hesitant, not in regard to this petition, but I'm a little hesitant generally in regard to granting it, because there's often going to be one council member who might not be here, but 6, our rules allow for 6 to move on. It's our discretion. I haven't heard any compelling evidence as to why we shouldn't hear the case. So with all due respect to the appellant here, I think we probably can hear the case and move, just see where the chips fall.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Vieira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I unfortunately wasn't here. I was driving around looking for a spot when the relief sought was requested. Was the basis that this individual, I don't know who they are, just wanted 7 council members?
Yes.
They wanted all 7. That's it, nothing else.
Would you mind, Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of the missing?
Ask Mr. Curry.
Please.
Mr. Curry, if you'd just like to clarify the reason for the continuance.
Well, gentlemen, in reading the quasi-judicial guidelines, one of the things it says, if fails to receive at least 4 votes. So that was one of our concerns. One of the person that is missing, we know from the previous situation back last August 29th, that they actually spoke strongly against this, and that person is not here. So sort of feel like we're going into our war battle without one of our soldiers. For that reason, we also didn't know that Councilman Vieira was going to be here in time, and we also heard that Councilman Dingfelder was going to be late. So for that reason, we've asked for the continuance. The idea of 4 votes, at least if we get a tie, or not a tie, but when we get 4 votes, is it continued then? That I'm not clear on. Fails and no other motion is carried, the public hearing shall be automatically reopened and continued to a time certain at the next regularly scheduled council meeting, which is actually Thursday night.
And thank you, sir. I just wanted to hear it from you, that's all. With all due respect, I would agree with my colleague, Councilman Dingfelder, but I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Well,
Thank you very much. All right, having said that, there is no motion on the floor to have this continued, so we move forward with it, and we go on with item number 1.
Good morning, Council. Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department. Before you today is a petition for review of AB 120-05 and AB 120-06. Pursuant to Chapter 27-360, I'm sorry, 27-60, B3, this is an administrative review or AR permit because it's an S1 special use permit. Pursuant to Chapter 27-61, J3, under review of an AR permit, council shall apply a de novo standard of review and shall not be limited in its review to that information, documentation, or evidence upon which the AR permit was based. Council shall follow all applicable ordinances in arriving at its decision and may receive new evidence. Council, after reviewing the AR permit and hearing evidence and testimony, may either affirm the AR permit or deny the AR permit. I did place before you sample motions as well as a copy of Chapter 27-130, 27-129, which contains the general standards for all special use permits, and I believe the standards of this particular alcoholic beverage special use permit, the conditions in section 27-132 are included within your staff report and will be reviewed by Mr. Cotton, who I will turn over to now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to use the Elmo. Eric Cotton, Planning and Development. This up, well, let me take this off. The application was reviewed by zoning staff.
Speak up a little, please, the microphone.
He can
Pardon?
take,
Oh. Am I not, you're not hearing me? I will say, is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. The application was submitted by staff, as we were talking earlier, after the AB2 application was heard by council. They then came in and applied for the AB1, withdrew the AB2. This is for a property located at 5246 North Florida Avenue. The applicant received a special use approval for a package store, a 3PS is what the state designation is. Again, per the code, alcoholic beverage sales, all applications shall comply with parking requirements and effective time of the application and contained in the applicable section of this chapter. Applications processing is an S1. When processed as an S1 permit, the zoning administrator shall approve the application if it is consistent with the applicable specified use standards contained below. 3, shoppers goods, convenience, gasoline, specialty retail, craft distillery, retail, package only. Sales shall be incidental to a shopper's good, convenience, gasoline retail, specialty retail, or craft distillery retail, and sales are only allowed with a license from the state as follows. And there's a list of different requirements, and one of them is included the 3PS, and it says in parentheses, incidental to shopper's goods, retail only. This is an as-built site on Florida Avenue. As you can see from the overhead, it's a multi-tenant building. It's got retail on the bottom, residential on the top floors, along with the parking garage. The top view is from Florida Avenue. The bottom view is from Giddens. And let me just take this off for a second. And I want to review the site plan, which, whoop, here it is. This is submitted site plan. This is the plan that was submitted for both the AB2 and AB1. And also this is the approved building plan. It's the same layout, the same configurations. The required parking on the site is 97 spaces. They're providing 110 spaces. And the breakdown is based on the number of the retail establishment and such. They do meet the required parking for the site. Parking ratios for Seminole Heights are a little bit different than they are elsewhere in the city. When the Seminole Heights Code was adopted back in 2015-ish, council approved reductions for specific uses, and how that was calculated out, you got credit for motorcycle parking spaces and for bicycle parking spaces. The requirement that the use be incidental, the package store is incidental to the primary store. So, for instance, if the grocery store were to not ever be opened, the package store cannot be opened. So for the property owner in the future, when they, if they wanted just to have a package store, they can't. Staff would not sign off on the state application because they don't meet the requirements of our chapter 27. And that's basically a summary of the request. Does council have questions for me?
All right, do we have any questions from board members? Seeing none? All right, thank you very much. That concludes presentation from staff. Sir, you have 15 minutes.
Before he begins,
Wait.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but I just want to make it clear for the record that there have been written communications in this case. The clerk has them.
All right, we
They
move
have
to
been up-
receive and file them?
Yes, please.
All right, can we get a motion to receive and file any documents? All right, motion from Councilman Citro, second from Councilman Viera, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, sir, you may begin. You have 15 minutes.
Two questions before I begin. I have photos that I'd like to show,
It
if
can be-
that's possible.
It can be
Where would I
part
do
of your
that?
presentation.
Excuse me?
Make it part of your presentation. You have 15
Yeah,
minutes.
but where am I doing them? Where do I put them?
Oh, put them right there under the projector,
right here.
and then they'll appear on the screen for everybody to see. Yes, sir, right there, right underneath that
Put them
that
right on the
camera.
table.
Got it.
Mr. Chairman, I do.
And also, I would like to give part of my time, because I won't use it all, the 15 minutes, to Mr. Jeff Manzuto,
All
gentleman
right,
right
yeah, as
here.
long as you fit it within 15 minutes, it's fine.
Okay.
Councilman Vieira, Councilman Dingfelder, you had anything?
I'll save it till later.
All right, sounds good. You may begin, sir,
All right.
and if Mr. Manzuto wishes to speak, just as
15
long as
minutes.
it's within the 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Good morning, Councilman. Nice to see you again. I say again because we've been here before with this issue. Last year, July 29th, almost 1 year ago, to state our opposition to basically the same issue. A special use permit for basically a liquor package store in our neighborhood, and we're still here. August 29th, council voted 4-3 to the motion not to approve, but they needed to make another motion, as I understand it, to deny. And that never happened, unfortunately. There's some, the legalese verbiage I don't necessarily understand in the chapter, as I understand it. Evidently, from what we've been able to decipher, it happened at a time that was a very unfortunate mistake by City Council by not following up with that second vote, following procedure, and that's why we're back here. Petitioner then was given a continuance, unbeknownst to us, after we left the chambers. There was no other public presence there except the petitioner. 10:30 that night, arrived home, found out that the neighbors said, yeah, you did a great job, but you really didn't defeat the request. And I didn't understand that because we walked out of there thinking 4-3, everything was good, but we didn't understand the process. Needless to say, we kind of felt like we took it on the chin. Fast forward to December of 2019, when the petitioner applied for another different permit, an AB1, different from the AB2 they had originally started with, that was going to be connected to a grocery store. We're not sure how that process happened, though we just heard some kind of an explanation about that. And that only requires, as you heard, only administrative approval rather than coming in front of City Council. The meeting that we're at now actually should have happened on March 19th, and because of the virus, this is why it has been postponed till today. In the meantime, Duckweed Grocery, which was the connection to that package store, has pulled out because they couldn't make their store, they said they couldn't make their store profitable unless they had a liquor store. They came to our neighborhood association, spoke to it, and basically said, you need to help us, need to get us in there, because without a liquor store, we can't make the grocery store profitable. We think that is a poor, bad business model. Basing your success of your grocery store on a liquor store sale? No. As you know, Duckweed's pulled out. The owner of the building is suing Duckweed. I don't know if Duckweed's going back to him, doing something else. But also interesting about Duckweed, we got interested in that and we started looking to see who really owned Duckweed. We were able to find out that the owners of Duckweed don't really live, and what we found out, don't live in Tampa. They don't live in Florida, and they don't even live in the United States. They live in Hyderabad, India. So all this talk about keeping things local, keeping the money in the community, giving back, we had an issue with that. Zoning has cited as one of our reasons for opposition is parking and its impact on our neighborhood. That is true, and it is an impact on our neighborhood. But before I get to the parking, I want to talk about a couple of other issues which are part of the things we deal with at that area, that northeast corner of Seminole Heights every day on a daily basis, and a standalone package store there will only exacerbate those issues. Finally, I just want to be clear, we are not anti-business, but we as neighbors and residents of South Seminole Heights, we also have the right to defend our property rights against anything we believe inconsistent with where we live and that could have detrimental effects on where we reside. So, issues around this, and then I'll talk about parking. Number one, we've done some searches. I did this last year when I presented, August 29th. There are numerous package stores and liquor stores within 2 miles of that site. Many less than half a mile. Many of them we've heard about, oh, well, we want delivery. Many of them also deliver to Seminole Heights. We've heard about the walkability issue, about having something there, including a grocery store, which, by the way, a grocery store would still make a parking issue. I find it hard to believe that somebody that lives on Martin Luther King area of south part of Seminole Heights is going to be walking to buy groceries at the northeast corner, but that is proposed out there. We have some entities around us, the Circle K, which you all know about, the Dutch Motel. We have vagrancy, transients, all that kind of thing going through there. In March, the police were at our doors 3 times, the last day of February and the first couple of weeks of March. Circle K was robbed twice. Another car was broken into on Giddens on our street. So it's not unusual for us to have those kinds of knocks on our door in the middle of the night to look at our cameras. We have seen out there, I saw it just the other day, I think it was yesterday, a drug deal. Guy gets out of the car, sits in the car, gets back in the car, gets out, puts something in his pocket, and walks down the street. This is not unusual in the area of Seminole Heights where we live. So security and safety in our area is an issue. FDLE constantly notifies our neighborhood association about people that move into the Dutch Motel. We got one just this week, maybe it was last week, about a predator who has moved in there, and that is not the first time we've had those things sent to us. So it happens. We don't know if that's a halfway house. I don't know what it is, but it is a problem. You know the issues of a liquor store and how they affect and can adversely affect a community or a neighborhood. I don't think any of you would prefer to be in my situation, our situation, to have a liquor store sitting near you or next to you. So it becomes a quality of life issue for us in part. And that part of the neighborhood, that's the gateway, the northeast gateway to Seminole Heights. So we got a street that's not even considered a street, it's a pathway. It's a one-lane street. We've had all kinds of questions from police. They've been out there. Fire, sanitation, they can't get by sometimes because of the way people park on that street during the day. So these are issues that we contend with all the time. So let me talk about the parking issue, which the staff report really hit on in our opposition to this. Liquor store is stop and go parking. People pull up, they run in, buy something, and run out. They're not going to be going into that garage to go into a liquor store. They park on the street now just like that, albeit no parking signs, but it still happens on a regular basis. There are serious issues with our street parking. There is no room. TPD has been involved. They've been out there and looked at it. District 3, they totally agree with us on that. Giddens is that part of Giddens from Highlands Avenue to Florida Avenue and vice versa is a cut-through street. In the morning, in the afternoon, it's a racetrack. We have a 4-way stop. It doesn't matter. They run through. The police set up there sometimes to do stings, but it hasn't been recently. But it is an issue, and it's a constant issue. We understand the road's going to be repaved at some point, maybe 2021. Before that building went in, it was going to be done before that. But when that happens, then what are you going to do with the parking? So there's issues all around this thing. Parking occurs on our driveways, on our sprinkler heads. They've broken sprinkler heads. They pull up. They turn around in our driveways. They make a U-turn in the 4-way stop on a daily basis. This happens regularly. The narrowness of the street is a hindrance to 2-way traffic. People have to stop if there's another vehicle there. Emergency vehicles, they recognize that problem too. I mentioned that TPD and Tampa Fire have larger vehicles and backing out on their own driveway. There's no parking signs that I ended up getting put up a few years ago on the north side of the street. It doesn't matter. People park directly under them. In the evenings, people going into the building to visit friends, because we understand from people that live in the building that they're not allowed to park in the building. I know residents that have asked for a second sticker. They were refused. I know residents who've had parents had their cars towed because they can't park, or they've gone into the garage but were towed. There is a tow truck that regularly sits at the corner of Florida and Giddens in the evenings. And I've talked to the guy, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm towing vehicles. I said, from where, the street? No, inside. So they're constantly monitoring that, watching that. The idea that they've got all these parking spaces in there, if they had duckweed, where was everybody going to park? Were they kind of doing a shell game, overlapping the number they have versus who lives there? We're not sure how that works and how zoning said you're approved for that. We were actually told at a meeting at zoning that they met the parking requirement, but, in quotes, just barely. Those are the issues around parking that you mentioned. That we constantly have delivery trucks all the time parked in our street, Amazon, Prime. They have to make their deliveries, but they're big trucks, and they make deliveries to the building. If there were a grocery store there, if there were a liquor store there, where's the Budweiser truck going to park? It's not going in the building. He parks at the corner where they all park, all these delivery trucks, and they block traffic. On weekends, people park all the way to the stop sign. There's a little bit of a lane at that end at Florida Avenue where they park just below the stop sign. There's no room to make your right turn at the stop sign because it's all filled up with traffic. So these are the issues. Any commercial enterprise there unloading and unloading. They made a statement in the staff report that they'd be selling alcohol off the street. That's not what that meant. What it meant was they'd have nowhere to park and they have to be doing their deliveries in that manner. Package stores around there. The Red Star Rock Bar is right next door. It is a package store, and that was the first thing in the last year when they were going to do this. Try to get it in as an AB2, they wanted a variance of the 250-foot rule. Well, Red Star is closer than 250, right? But that's what one of the requests was in that first application for that permit. So with that, also, we've got support. I've heard that signatures in a petition don't make a lot, but I will say we've got over 100 signatures from our neighborhood, and not just people that live at that corner who are opposed to a package store at that premises, at that property. So with that, I will turn over the remainder of my time to Mr. Manzuto.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions, gentlemen?
Wait, how much time does he have left?
I have,
Okay. So,
Yeah,
Mr.
11:30,
Manzuto, you have
yeah.
3 minutes and 30 seconds. If you could state your name for the record once you approach. Wait, the other one.
podium, please.
Yeah, alternate when you come up to speak.
And is his petition part of our record? Or did he want it to be?
Oh, the petition, sir, did you?
The gentleman said that he wanted
Mr. Curry?
Manzuto to be
The
part of
the
the.
petition you signed, or that you had signed by your residents?
Yes, sir.
Is that already part of our record, or do you want to submit it?
I offered it last time, but I've got it right here. I can take it.
For the record, Mr. Shelby is taking that petition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Councilman, I have it in my possession, and I just want to share with you that it is in terms of competent substantial evidence, obviously, unless there are specific facts in here, I can pass these around, but I will say to you that generally speaking, and I guess this would be one of those cases, that a petition, whether in support or in opposition, does not constitute competent substantial evidence, but certainly, counsel, you can place this into the record.
All right, thank you very much.
You'll circulate that, Mr. Shelby?
All right, sir, if you would please state your name for the record, and you may.
Just out of curiosity, my name is Jeff Manzuto. The time that I have allotted, was that taken out of what you guys just did, or, because I don't have a clock in front of me?
No, it starts the moment you speak, and.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so does it start now because I'm speaking now?
Well,
all right.
We'll give you the 3.5 minutes.
So what I want to do, folks, is I want to summarize what actually happened here.
State your name for the record.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey Manzuto. All right. I want to kind of state what really happened here. The petitioner originally applied for an AB2, correct? Everybody understands that? They went for an AB2. They came before City Council. They got the vote was down. They asked for a continuance. They went back to our civic association. They wanted the support. They found the support from the community wasn't there. So what they did was, hey, you know what we can do is we can circumvent the system and let's go for an AB1. Now I heard the Planning Commission said the reason why they went for AB1 is administratively somebody left that position and told them they could do something differently. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I can tell you what happened was they just said, hey, we don't need City Council's approval because we're not going to get the support of the community because Seminole Heights does not want a liquor store there. They don't want it. But when they went to Planning Commission, and the word that they focused on here was incidental. Well, what is incidental to sales? So they're saying that the liquor store is incidental to the grocery store, which it's not, because they pulled out because they couldn't get their liquor license. They know we were appealing this, so without that liquor store, that grocery store can't go in there. So to me, that's not incidental to their sales. So they went through the backdoor process to try to get this done. And that's the problem that I have. And the problem that we talked about, and Councilman Dingfelter said this at our Civic Association meeting, that your folks here have so much on your agenda that a lot of things that you're doing administratively instead of going before City Council. This never, ever should have went to the Planning Commission. This should have been before you like it was in the beginning. It should have stayed there till the end. If we would have been denied, then we said, okay, we had our fair share. But we didn't. Our rights were eliminated as soon as they went down the street on North Boulevard and said, guys, we want you to approve this administratively. And forget about City Council, forget about the neighborhood. And you folks never would have known about this unless we came to you and told it. So City Council was never, ever notified. So this is a backdoor way of getting a liquor store in a neighborhood. If this happens in Seminole Heights, you are setting a precedent today saying, guys, you know what? Don't worry about getting a packaged liquor store done, because as long as you have a grocery store, sell Drake's Cakes and sell Tic Tacs and sell a couple of sandwiches, and you're fine, and you can put a liquor store in a neighborhood, because you don't have to go before City Council. That's wrong. So you have an obligation today to turn this around. Do not set a precedent that other stores can come in and do the same thing that these people are doing. Because they did it the right way, it didn't go their way, so they went the backdoor way. And that is not a way for the neighborhood. We are 100% opposed to this. We felt the way they did it the first time was the right way, and now they're going administratively, and we do not want the Planning Commission telling us in our neighborhood what should go in there. So that's why we're here adamantly opposing this, what they approved, it needs to be denied. And if they get another store going in there, let them apply, again, go the right way. But I don't know why they're so adamant, and we do not need this liquor store. I know Brian talked about all the issues, but really the main issue is the way this is approved. It was wrong. And if someone can tell me what incidental means, because that's the key word they're using here, is incidental. What's incidental to sales? If it was incidental, why aren't they still going in? They need this liquor store to make it work. So it's not incidental, it's primary to their business. And without the liquor store, they said they can't go in there. So it's not incidental at all.
Thank you very
So I
much.
ask you to
Thank you,
disapprove
sir.
this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council members? Councilman Vieira.
Just to, I guess, make a point that this nice gentleman here, just to clarify that, my understanding is that the applicant always had the right to go administratively, chose to go before council, and then went administratively legal, correct? Is Mr. Shelby, Mr. Johnson-Velez?
Eric Cotton, Planning and Development. The applicant would have had the right to go through the special use 1 process originally. I don't know enough about the history if they were instructed by staff to go the AB2 route versus the AB1 route. But with a change in an administrator in the interpretation of the code, that's what prompted them to go the AB1 route, because they were told that they could administratively go through this process. The attorney that was originally representing the applicant, original duckweed applicant, did contact staff and ask that question. We went to the zoning administrator that took over once the other one retired, and she said, yes, that's what the code meant, they could go the AB1 route.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, sir. When we sit in a sort of a review process like this, as Ms. Johnson-Velez pointed out earlier, there are certain standards that we have to go by under Section 27-129. And I'd like you to speak to those targeted. I assume you live close by?
Yeah, a couple blocks away.
Okay. So two of the standards that we have to go by is whether or not this will, the public health, safety, and general welfare will continue to be protected. or will be hindered by this project and by this approval. And then more specifically, whether or not the use proposed is compatible with the contiguous and surrounding property. Now, I can sort of picture this project. The project's on Florida, so right on Florida, you have a lot of commercial, but directly behind, you have residential, which I don't want to testify, but you can in regard to how close that residential is to the project. And specifically, my question is, in your opinion, based upon your own personal knowledge, is the proposed use compatible with the surrounding residential property?
Absolutely not. It's
Why?
not because, well, first of all, you're talking about, you mentioned the first thing was safety. Is that what you mentioned first of all?
Public health.
Public health,
Safety,
okay.
welfare.
So someone please explain to me how in that particular area, looking at what the statistics are, how a liquor store will add to the fabric of that particular zoning where they have the crime statistics that are going on. If someone can tell me how a liquor store is going to enhance that and make it better, then I'm all ears. But to me, a liquor store, when you have that kind of community that's around there, and Brian already addressed that, I don't need to do that, it doesn't add to the fabric. It actually decreases it. Because it'll attract a certain type of clientele, because I don't care what you say, but people that unfortunately are down and out, the first thing they want to do, as soon as they get their money, they go and want to try to get liquor. And that's just going to be a magnet for them. So I don't see how a liquor store adds to the fabric of a community. No one can tell me that.
So you would
So
say that?
absolutely not.
So you would say that use is incompatible with the contiguous residential property?
Absolutely. Of course it is.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from council members? All right, seeing none, we go to public comment. Each speaker has 3 minutes to speak. If you would approach the lectern, state your name for the record, and when you do approach the lectern, you can pull your mask down so we can hear you clearly. And after each speaker, just alternate so we disinfect one and you get to the other. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm David Harwood. I'm the property manager for the building. A couple of things I just wanted to bring up. Big thing that was mentioned by Mr. Curry was the parking. We've addressed the parking situation. We do have a garage there, but one of the big things that he stated that is incorrect is you don't have to enter the garage to go into any store that's going to be there. It's also not a liquor store. It's going to be a convenience store that sells liquor. It's a big difference. You have to go into the convenience store and then in through a separate entrance to be able to access, the liquor section of it. It's also going to be craft beers and stuff. This is high-end stuff. This is not your typical liquor store that's on the corner. So being that said, we have 40 surface level parking spots where people can pull onto the property. You park, enter, get what you need, get back in your car and go. They're not going to be parking on Giddens Avenue. So we have addressed the parking situation. We have plenty of parking. The residents have restricted parking once the retail section opens, where they have to park on the second and third floor of the garage. The entire first floor is reserved for retail. To have 40 cars using a convenience store parking lot at one time would seem a little bit outrageous. There's not going to be that many people in there at once. But regardless, to bring up the parking situation, with or without the liquor portion of this, there's still going to be a store there. There's still going to be people parking. There's still going to be people going in. So the parking is really not much of a factor in this, because with or without liquor, there's going to be people parking to go into whatever store is in there. But as far as the fabric of the neighborhood, I have letters of support here from the actual residents of our building, none of which over the last 16 months since we've been working on this have I ever gotten a negative reply from. They all want it there. Most of the neighbors around the area have stopped to tell us they want it there. There's even some emails that were sent to City Council directly. I noticed on the agenda page this morning, they emailed you all directly saying that they're in support of it. So the petitioner now is the very, very, very small minority here. Most people in the area have voiced their support. They want it in. The residents of the building, who would be the most concerning, want it in. I'd be happy to share these emails with you and show you what they've sent to us. So I think it's important to note that when you have the residents who live in the building who would have the biggest concern with having a liquor component to a convenience store in support of it, I believe that should weigh more than anything else of a small minority that's against it. And again, for the reasons listed, he would have the same concerns no matter what went in there. If we have a convenience store that just sells beer, I would believe that generates the same traffic as if somebody's going in to buy a bottle of liquor. I don't think that that makes any difference whatsoever. You're still gonna have the same parking concerns, and you'd still have the same traffic concerns. So as the manager of the building, we have plans that are in place to be implemented once the retail opens to deal with any undesirable traffic. We have security cameras throughout the building. We're gonna have other retail sections that are in there, restaurant, food concepts.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions, if I
Yes, sir,
could.
Mr. Citro.
Thank you very much. You are the property manager, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then you are the proper person to ask these questions too. Does staff have a site plan that we can put up on the OMO? Also, I'm going to ask you is just a few simple questions, where the location of the supposed grocery store, liquor store is going to be. Can you see that site plan?
I can.
Eric, can you blow that up just a little bit for me? Is that possible? Please forgive us, we're getting used to our new accommodations here.
Well, I'm thinking it might be easier to move it here if I can point to things on it, if that's what.
Yes, that's what I'm going to ask. If you could just show me where the proposed grocery store, liquor store is going to be at?
This was the grocery store. That's controlled, not this.
Okay, now, thank you, who's ever pointing there. I think it's Eric. That's going to be the liquor portion, the smaller portion?
Correct. And that's within the way the design is you would have to enter. So if you're looking at the color picture, right in the center of the first floor would be one of the entrances that's from the Florida Avenue side. There's an equal entrance on the back side of the building, which is where the parking is.
There is an entrance to that liquor store?
No, that's not to the liquor store. That would be to the convenience store. You would have to enter the general store first. Once you're in the store, there would be a separate door that would go into the liquor portion.
Thank you very much.
There's not a direct access to the liquor portion
From the parking area?
From the exterior of the building at all.
From the parking area?
Right, you would have to be within, and one of the things is, and to my understanding, this is one of the things that prompted the switch to the AB1, because there wasn't gonna be a separate entrance, it's incorporated within the store. And
Thank you. My point is you have to park in the rear parking where you say there's 40 spots back there?
There's 40 surface level.
In the rear of that building?
Correct.
Okay, you would have to get to the liquor store if you were not gonna buy any groceries or buy anything. Say you wanted to pick up some wonderful microbrewed beer, you'd have to go through or around to get to the liquor store.
Correct. So there's an entrance to the property, a drive entrance, and looking at this picture, it'd be on the left or the south side of the property.
Okay.
And then there's an entrance off of Giddens Avenue where you could drive to. And both of those meet into the parking area that's in the rear of the building.
The delivery trucks to deliver specifically for the grocery store and the liquor store, where are they going to be parking at while those deliveries are being offloaded?
So on the south side of the property, or the left while we're looking at this picture, is where our dumpsters are for the city of Tampa. When we built that, we had to make that large enough for the city trucks to be able to do a full U-turn within the premises. That was also designed so that you could have delivery trucks like Budweiser and stuff like that can pull in there, they can turn around, because you don't immediately enter the garage. That's one of the things I need you to kind of visualize is you enter on the surface level, and then the garage is the second and third story above the surface level.
So you can go underneath that garage entering from Giddens? Is that what you're saying?
From Giddens, you would enter directly under the garage. From Florida Avenue on the south side, you enter, there is no garage there, so you can have taller trucks and things like that to get in before they enter the garage.
Again, one more time, if you enter from Giddens, you bypass the garage by going underneath it.
When you enter Giddens, you're directly under, like, when you go pulling off of Giddens, the garage is above you immediately. So the garage,
Thank you.
the garage is on Giddens Avenue.
Now, off-street parking, where's their off-street parking, just in case? Someone had brought that up.
It would be Giddens Avenue.
Okay, that is, off-street parking is there.
I mean, we don't promote off-street parking, but if, you know, the city of Tampa has off-street parking. We don't have any designated spots that say these are our off-street parking.
Okay.
If a vehicle parks on the street in a no parking zone, there's not much control I have on that section.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. That's right.
Slowly getting the hang of this. Thank you, council members. Thank you, Chair.
Your name, please, for the record.
Again, it's R.J. Hoy, and I represent the landowner, 5208 Giddens Ave. So, just a few highlights. You know, this was approved by staff, and none of the issues, factually, there's obviously going to be a lot of differences of opinion as to what Mr. Curry presented, and respectfully, you know, we think a lot of it's just mistaken factually. But regardless, the criteria for this approval was thoroughly analyzed by staff, and it met all the criteria. The only issue that was discussed by Mr. Curry in the petition, both in the written petition and in his comments here today, that relate to the actual criteria was relating to the parking. And the staff, again, thoroughly analyzed each of his complaints regarding parking and the other issues. And again, the property and the location and the use of the premises is all in compliance with the criteria set forth in the ordinance. I understand the petitioner and the other witness have an issue with the available, you know, avenues for approval in the ordinance, but that's a different issue than the approval as it stands. My client has invested a lot in this property and is a big believer in Seminole Heights. This is a second very high-end, these are loft apartments that attract young professionals, a lot of people that work in downtown, a lot of people that work at the hospitals. They're in support of this. This is something that's going to service them, that's going to make their life better. And this development, this use is going to make Seminole Heights better. The majority of those who've you know, weighed in on it, including, contrary to earlier testimony, the civic associations in Seminole Heights support it. And so, for all those reasons, the reality is there's no basis, there's no factual or legal basis to overturn the approval, and so we'd respectfully request that Mr. Curry's petition be denied. If anybody has questions about any of that, I'm happy to.
Any questions for the gentleman? No? Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Council. Stephen Lytle, 322 West Giddens Avenue. I want to start off by saying many of you know me as the president of the South Seminole Heights Civic Association, but I'm here only to speak as a resident who lives on Giddens Avenue. And I do want to correct Mr. Hoy. Our Civic Association does not either approve or oppose this. Our Civic Association allows our residents to be heard and gives them information, but we do not take a stance on this specific topic or any other. I am here today because I am a father that lives on West Giddens Avenue, and I want to voice my support of the zoning administrator that's already been approved after reviewing the facts and finding no plausible reason to deny the request. The point should also give council second thought to overturning the administrator's decision because, as you know, they evaluate the compliance with Municipal Code Section 27132, which designates this as a special use permit for incidental use. And not only would a decision to overturn undermine that administrator's decision, but it opens up the city to legal challenges as well. And you'll have to be forced to explain why an application that meets all requirements stipulated by the city would be denied. We have this application, these requirements specifically to create consistency and to reduce the liability for expensive litigation to the city. From an emotional standpoint, our neighborhood's on the cusp of something great. We have great neighborhood leadership, including Mr. Curry here, who are improving our community when it comes to transportation and pedestrian safety, sustainability of our parks, improving our historic Broward Elementary, and more. Our neighborhood's in good shape and getting better. We're seeing vacant car lots and vacant properties turned into coffee shops and ice cream shops, dentistry offices, veterinary offices. But it's only the beginning of our transformation, and the next steps involves mixed-use developments like the Avenue Lofts, who invested in the only parking garage in Seminole Heights because they knew that parking was an issue, who invested in setbacks from Florida Avenue because they wanted to create walkability and improve street front activation. This is the kind of development we want to see, not some of the others that are pushed right up against Florida Avenue. And we make the leap from good to great when we have visions by residents as well as business owners that support what we're trying to do here and not hinder it. Issues like the revolving door of drug dealers and sex offenders at the Dutch Motel, constant trash buildup from Circle K, they should not have an impact on this decision. You can't hold a business responsible for conditions they did not create. You can't assume that there's going to be parking issues because the city mandates a specific requirement for spaces, 97 in this instance, and they have 110. Yeah, do we need your help with these things, with the parking issues on Giddens? Yeah, we need your help. We need some enforcement. But should that give you reason to overturn the administrator's decision? Absolutely not. It should give you reason instead to uphold it in hopes that a new business who's ready to invest in South Seminole Heights will be a part of the solution instead. I hope you don't assume what the future will hold for this site or make a decision on what will happen if it is upheld. You should only base your decisions on facts presented in the case. And the application deservedly was approved, and I hope you upheld that effort and support the revitalization and growth of our neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Stacy Jones. Can't hear me. Is that better?
Yes.
Good morning, Stacy Jones. I'm a U.S. Foreign Service officer currently stationed at MacDill Air Force Base. I've moved here last year and bought a house on West Giddens Avenue. In fact, I live directly across from the parking garage, so I think I'm very well positioned to speak to what is already currently happening in the neighborhood. Obviously, with COVID-19, having to work from home a lot in the last few months, definitely see what's happening in the neighborhood on a day-by-day basis. As to what some of the previous speakers mentioned in terms of the traffic on that street, it's quite immense, and it's not really a street either. It's actually much more like a lane. You really can't have two cars passing at once. There's already tons of delivery trucks there, and it is true that people that live in that building, when folks are visiting them constantly on the weekends, there's people parked on either side of the street, and it's very difficult to pass. Now, I understand that this building was approved, previously, and that's not an issue here. But in terms of the neighborhood and mixed-use development, of course, and it is great. I mean, I moved into Seminole Heights because I saw the potential that was there, and I think that there is a lot of potential for businesses in the community. However, that building, I would say, is probably, I would call it a blight on the neighborhood, with all due respect, in terms of whether we are in the minority or not. I would say that I have a full-time job. I've never actually made it a point to come to a council meeting before in my life, but I definitely took a couple hours out of my day today because this directly impacts me, and I do see it as a public safety and health issue. We already have the Circle K and the individuals that are there roaming around at night all along our street, and I don't really see how this package store is going to add benefit to that. In any way, shape, or form. And again, this building, I already see it kind of as a blight. I mean, frankly, I don't know if you've ever been there or seen this building, but the lighting on top of the building, it's like, I feel like I'm back in Iraq last year living in a prison compound because the lighting that they have on top of the building shines all the way through like a couple streets on either side. And it's very disturbing if I'm sitting in my backyard to have to deal with that. And so this package store issue is just one amongst many others in terms of the building. I'd really like to think that instead of the building owners being so contentious with those who are living on that street, that I would really like to see that they would be more cooperative with us working through some of these issues. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, may I ask, ma'am? You said you live on Giddens?
I do, sir. 109 West Giddens Avenue.
How far down from this building?
There's one house to my left that's directly across from the parking garage, and then I'm the next house over.
On-street parking, is there on-street parking on Giddens in front of your house?
There is only parking if somebody wants to park on my lawn.
Okay, across the street from you, where the building is
The same
located.
would be, the house across from me is Mr. Curry's house, and that same situation would apply. If you go to my neighbors to the left, again, there's no parking in front of their house. If you go if you go farther to the left, that backs up against the backside of the Circle K, and there's some grassy area there, which was, they were talking about earlier, where probably like 4 cars could fit in, but then when people are parked on the other side of the street, which is the parking garage, basically you can't pass if people are parked on both sides. It's difficult.
To the best of your knowledge, is there no parking signs
Yes.
there?
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Ma'am?
Councilman Dingfelder.
Ma'am? Ma'am. Sorry,
Sorry. My apologies.
I'm over here.
Sorry.
So a couple of things. One, sometimes people come in late and don't get sworn in. Were you sworn in?
I was not, sir.
You were what?
I was not, sir.
Okay, can we swear in after the fact?
Yes, if you can attest to the fact that what she said was the truth, certainly.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind being sworn in, we have to for
Yes,
everyone that
sure.
speaks.
I swear.
Okay, and just to clarify, now that you've sworn, everything you said earlier was the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do so swear.
Okay. And I think you were here earlier. I asked the other gentleman, the taller gentleman, about compatibility with the contiguous and surrounding property. Mr. Lytle, I believe, is in the 300 block, which to my understanding is about 3.5 blocks down toward the river, which is on the same street, but you're even closer, as Mr. Citro pointed out, correct?
Yes, I'm literally across the street.
Okay, so what is your testimony in regard to the compatibility of this proposed use with your property, which is contiguous and surrounding, as well as any of your immediate neighbors?
Again, sir, I don't see how this particular liquor store package proposal would be beneficial to myself or to the neighborhood. I certainly don't have problems with other types of businesses going in there. Obviously, it was already zoned for such things, but I don't think that there's an additional boon for my neighborhood to have that. I see the potential for additional people hanging around, walking around, mulling around. I understand that maybe residents in the building might not have the same concerns as me, but I'm a single woman living in a single residential family house. Obviously, we all have to have security cameras because of the crime that exists in the neighborhood. I knew that when I moved in there, but I only see this potentially increasing that problem, not decreasing it.
So in a nutshell, you feel that this wet zoning is incompatible with the surrounding use?
I do, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Yes.
Afternoon, Council. Thank you for your time. My name is Ken Hotchek. 20-year resident of South Seminole Heights, live about 5.5 blocks away. I've watched this neighborhood develop. I've seen it from the Independent, which was a gun and pawn and tire shop, to what it is now today. I've seen the slow and positive growth in this neighborhood. Growing up in South suburban Chicago, I worked at a liquor store. We were in a middle-class neighborhood. We were not a positive force for the neighborhood. Liquor stores just don't work in these kind of neighborhoods. The houses behind us were new build houses. Clientele weren't the clientele we wanted. We sold high-end wine. We sold all of the high-end liquors that you have at a boutique store. This is what we didn't make our money on. It was the small pieces, the bottles, the lottery that made the difference. These people came from out of the area. They traveled through on the way to and from work. That's the kind of clientele we had at those liquor stores. It wasn't a positive thing on that. Excuse me. Dry sitting here, I apologize for that. I do not believe this is a good add to our neighborhood. It's not the kind of growth we've seen over the last 20 years. We can do better. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak at this time? Thank you very much. Please approach the lectern.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Williams. I live at 110 West Giddens, which is 2 houses down from this structure. I've lived in the neighborhood 17 years. Single woman by myself. I've watched it when I first moved into being scared to death to being just a little bit scared. I'm just going to hit a couple points. Mr. Lytle does live on the street, but he lives 2.5 blocks away, so he's really not privy to the daily things that we see. The people that live in the high-rise, sure, they walk downstairs, they go, they come back, and they go. I deal with parking problems. I've had multiple sprinkler heads broken. I've had to call the police because a visitor could not get his truck down through the street because of the constant parking on both sides, even though there are no parking signs on the north side. It's just been an ongoing problem. You know, I know everybody wants growth, and we do want growth, but we want positive growth. I don't want to worry about me sitting on my porch and people coming around that have had a few cocktails or a few bottles or this. Even the Circle K is a little undesirable by being by myself. And I just don't feel it's a safe situation for us. I don't find it to be a compatible solution for my neighborhood. And I love it. I love being there, and I want to feel safe.
Thank you very much.
All right? Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak at this time during public comment? Wait, seeing none, we now go back to any staff comments, anything? No? All right, we have rebuttal. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Curry, to speak.
Could I ask staff before the rebuttal?
Yes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Excuse me one second, Mr. Curry. Eric, I was a little confused on the Red Star Rock Bar. It does appear to be fairly proximate to this. Is it within 250? Is that relevant? What? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Eric Cotton, Land Development Court, or Planning and Development. There is no separation requirement for an AB1. The Red Star Rock Bar would be...
Eric, can you use your microphone, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'll sit back down. Eric Cotton, Planning and Development. There is no separation distance required under an AB1 as there would be for an AB2. So that provision in the code wouldn't apply in this case. I believe the Red Star Rock Bar is this little thing right there, if my memory serves me correctly. That was approved through an AB2 process. Is that correct, y'all? Is that correct? Is that the location right south?
That's correct.
Okay. That does have I believe they have a straight four-cop, so they can have consumption on and off premise, and that was approved by City Council a couple of years ago.
Okay. But the bottom line is there's no separation requirement on the AB1.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Curry, you now have 5 minutes for
Okay.
your rebuttal.
I'm going to ask my colleague to put the pictures up as I talk to them.
Please state your name again for the record.
Brian Curry, 108 West Giddens, live
And
next door to the building, the
Pull your
parking garage.
mask down so it's not
Oh,
muffled.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
So used to wearing it. Couple of things. The Red Star Rock Bar, I'll refer to that right away. That was the initial variance that was asked for a year ago because it's less than 250 feet, and it is a package store. They've reopened again. There's really no parking for the Red Star. They have very little limited parking in front of their bar. And so, as you saw from the people that testified here, parking is a major situation, and we'll put some of these pictures up. This is Giddens looking towards Florida, right here. You can see what it is. There is a sidewalk from my property to Florida Avenue, and then there's the opening halfway up or so where you can go into the garage. The reason that you asked about delivery trucks, they have to go around to the south side. The reason is they can't go under the entrance on Giddens because it's too low. There's a bar, and it says clearance only whatever size feet. Let me talk about some other things that were said here. A convenience store, another convenience store. Oh boy, we're excited about that. We got the Circle K around the corner. We call it the Circle Scary. Police are there regularly. You know what happens there. You all know about the Circle K, and you also know about the Dutch Motel. When this came up a year ago, we kept hearing that this was going to be a high-end liquor store. A high-end liquor store. I guess because it was tied to duckweed. But now it's going to be I just heard, a high-end convenience store. You all been to convenience stores. You know many high-end convenience stores just because it's located where it is in Seminole Heights. And if a liquor store is selling liquor, a liquor store is a liquor store is a liquor store. I said this last year. If I'm selling Twinkies and somebody wants to come in and buy a Twinkie, and I have 3 prices of Twinkies, they don't have a lot of money, they're going to buy the least priced Twinkie. So again, a liquor store is a liquor store. You can call it high-end all you want, but it doesn't mean anything, I don't believe. Same issues with parking, off-street parking. Show some photos here. Can you all hear me if I'm talking now?
No, you have to have the microphone. There you go.
Okay, this is, again, looking towards Florida. This is, again, Miss Jones lives right over here. This white car is parked under a no parking sign. This is what the traffic looks like on a daily basis, not evening and not weekends. I have people park in front of my house sometimes Friday night till Sunday night, or even Monday morning. I'm constantly chasing people off of my property where they park. Trash, you can see that. We told that they were going to, last year they were going to have policing of the area, 2 people on site, blah, blah, blah. Well, we don't see that happening. Sanitation workers on a morning trying to get by. Here you go, morning picture of somebody driving towards Florida Avenue. Cars also parked on the south side of the street, the illegal way, facing down instead of facing towards Florida. Traffic like this all the time with trailers, et cetera, et cetera. No parking signs, we have 2 of them there. This is the corner where the Heartline bus is. The bus stop is right across the corner from where this so-called high-end convenience store will be located. That's the trash around the bus, and that's not too bad, actually, right now. So those are the issues. Let me finish up with a few other things in rebuttal. I mentioned off-street parking. There is none. I know Mr. Lytle said he lives on Giddens too, but like Ms. Williams said, he lives at the other end. He does not deal with the same issues that we deal with. Mentioned that, somebody mentioned, I think it was him, that the parking garage is the only parking garage in Seminole Heights. Yeah, maybe true, but you can't park in it. They won't let people park in there unless you live there. So that has become an issue, and that's why we have people parking on our lawns and along the single-lane street. Somebody mentioned that they had the support of the South Seminole Heights Civic Association. I think Mr. Lytle corrected that, though. And I am actually on the board. I think most of you know that. I'm a delegate on the board. I am representing myself in this situation. However, I do know that the association does not support anything like this. We do not take any stances on any kinds of these matters. Just a sidebar, this big building is so beautiful and shiny. One thing we know about, I've got some of the younger people over there that have come by, and they have to give me some of their recycling, because with I don't know how many people live in there, that building does not recycle. Everything goes in the dumpsters, which I thought you would be interested to know that. That should be something that should be, I think, should be a requirement of a place like that, to be recycling instead of throwing things in the trash. One last thing. Last year, Councilman Goods spoke adamantly against this area. He used to patrol it as a police officer. He said it all at that July 29th meeting, August 29th meeting. And I think if you go back and look at the video or remember his comments in those days, you'll see what we were talking about.
Thank you very much,
for your
sir.
time.
Thank you. All right.
Quick question to Mr.
Yes,
Curry.
Mr. Dingfelder.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, even though some of these other issues might be of concern, they're not what we're here about today. And I just wanted to make it clear on the record, we can't make a decision about the lighting, as the young lady said. We
Right.
can't make a decision about the recycling and the size of the building. You know, generally the building's there, it got approved, years ago. What we can make a decision are some of the factors that I mentioned earlier, and specifically compatibility. The property owner's representative criticized your testimony, and he said that you didn't really speak to the incompatibility of the proposed use. You spoke to parking in a general way, but staff says there's adequate parking. But are there any other concerns you have about compatibility or incompatibility of the proposed use? Very specifically.
Right. And you're talking about just parking or the liquor store in general?
The reason we're here today
Right.
is the use, the liquor use.
The use of, right.
Okay, and the question that's been told to us by legal counsel is it compatible or not compatible? Do you have any additional testimony as to?
I say it is incompatible. One, because of the parking. Parking is a major situation that we deal with. Also, as some people provided, and I know you say you can't consider it, however, a liquor store will also exacerbate a parking situation. Stop and go parking, parking illegally on the street, running in and getting a bottle, running out, and that kind of thing. I mean, there's nights you cannot get by on Giddens. We've had to call the police to get somebody to tow a vehicle, or at least get them to move it somehow.
And crime you mentioned as well, or no?
We have it all the time. I mean, you know, I say all the time. There's regularly situations I saw a drug deal yesterday or the day before at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I walked out of my house and there's a guy in a car, gets out, gets back in, puts something in his pocket, walks down the street towards Highlands, and the other guy turns and goes on Tampa Street towards the Dutch Motel.
Thanks, sir.
We see it all the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Curry, I'm sorry,
Yes, sir.
did you want those photos as part of the record?
I can't hear you.
I should get used to this. I said, did you want those photos as part of the record, sir?
Do you want to submit the
Yes.
photos?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Seeing none, can I get a motion to close this public hearing?
So move.
Who made the motion, I'm sorry? Councilman Dingfelder made the motion, second from Councilman Vieira. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all right, now it's motion time. Would any council member be comfortable making a motion to affirm or deny? You have the sample motions in front of you with the correct verbiage. Who would like to take this? Councilman Miranda.
I hope I have the right one here because I got 3 or 4 floating around. You know, I've heard the discussion on this. I think one time it was here in August of 19, I think it was. And if I recall, there was a lady and a gentleman that came up that spoke about duckweed. They were going to run the operation. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. And duckweed is out, I guess, from what I've heard. This is a very interesting case, because I don't think this case is going in even here. I think this case is going to be appealed to some court in the future. That's just my opinion. But I can see that because it started out with a 4-3 vote when part of the process of the hearing had left the room, and there was conversation with a very well-known attorney who represents a very renowned firm, and that's why we're here today. If I remember all the facts, and I'm not solely clear on that. So what I've heard today is another entity is coming in as a grocery or sales of grocery, and because duckweed left, and the process is that without the liquor store, you can't make it in today's world, I guess, and I'm just speaking in common street talk. So if you can't make it with that, then it's not secondary to the business, it is primary to the business. That's just my feeling. And as I look this, and you have a motion here to approve ZA permit, and I guess this is the one we're talking about, am I correct? Or deny ZA permit?
Yes, sir.
Am I correct?
It's AB 1-20-05/AB 1-2006.
One I have is 05, then it goes to AB 12006.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the
All right,
same.
I just want to make sure I got the right one. And my motion was like, I believe in August that to deny the permit, I moved to overturn the zoning administrator's approval, AB 1 application, AB 120-05-AB 1-2006, because the petitioner has demonstrated that the petition does not meet the applicable standards set forth in section 27-129A.
All right, so.
Second.
In additional facts of that, there's been some further testimony by individuals who live directly in that same block within 2 stones of a rock, or maybe 100 feet or 75 feet, that have spoke against it. The preponderance of the evidence that shows the traffic on Giddens, it's almost impossible from the evidence that I've seen shown today, and that this is not at the right time, at the right place. When this building was built, it didn't come to us. What happens now, we're approving a zoning mechanism for a structure. That structure is built with ample parking. The parking garage wasn't built for this manner. It was built because they have a beautiful building that they constructed in a beautiful manner to make the neighborhood better, and I commend them for that, I really do. And that's exactly what we need in Seminole Heights. In fact, West Tampa is now taking the blight that Seminole Heights used to have. We are now having the cars and the shops, the tire shops all over. Seminole Heights made great strides in the last 10, 12 years, and it started a little process by little people making salary just to support a house. That house and those buildings are now equal to an investment. If you had invested in 10 houses, you'd have been a multimillionaire. You just should have bought some stock then, but we don't sell stocks in houses. So when you look at these matters, I firmly believe that the traffic problem, the drug problem, the foot traffic that will come, that's not the type of traffic you need, not the ones coming in to buy something and leave. They're coming in to drink it on the street and possibly throw it out like evidence was shown on the photo. So I move to deny based on those informations and the information presented to us based on the decisions that this is not an applicable zoning at the right time, at the right place. It's the wrong zoning at the wrong time for the right place.
All right, we have a motion to deny from Councilman Miranda with a second from Councilmember Citro. Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, and if the maker of the motion will allow, specifically, I want to point to Section 27-129A, which I believe the maker of the motion mentioned, and specifically in regard to the evidence and testimony that we've heard about a detriment to the public health, safety, and welfare, paren 1, as well as that incompatibility. We heard several of the immediate neighbors testify to the incompatibility to their property contiguous and surrounding to the proposed use. I also believe we heard testimony that this will establish a bad precedent and encourage even more incompatible uses in the surrounding area, all contrary to 27-129 paren A. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Miranda. Excellent.
Certainly, I take that. No problem.
All right, motion to deny from Councilmember Miranda with a second from Councilmember Citro. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
May I verify who the name was?
Vieira.
Mr. Vieira, did you want to verify for the clerk?
Oh, yes.
Motion carried with Vieira voting no and Goods being absent.
All right, thank you very much. It is almost 12:30. We have 3 items left. Would you like to take a 10-minute break and then continue on with the agenda, or do you want to break for lunch and continue on? What is the pleasure of council? Councilman Miranda.
Whatever you like, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else?
I wouldn't mind taking a 10-minute break, maybe 15.
All right, let's do a
Continue.
15-minute break. We'll come back at 12:45, and we'll continue with the agenda and finish up from there. Thank you very much. We are in recess. Meeting back to order. If I could have roll call, please.
Viera.
Here.
Goose. Carlson.
Here.
Bienfelder. Here. Seacrow.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here. All right. Item number 3, if you notice, it has an email from the applicant saying it's not necessary for him to petition council, so we move on from that. I know we didn't have to reschedule it, so that's just gone.
Sir, do you wish to make a motion to that effect to remove it?
All right, can we get a motion to strike item number 3 from the
So
agenda?
moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion from Councilman Miranda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Dingfelder. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All righty. Items 5 and 6 cannot be heard. We've already dealt with those. So we go on to item
to
number 7.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department. Item number 7 is a petition for review from the denial of a design exception application where the petitioner requested a reduction in the rear yard from 3 feet to 2 feet 7 inches for an accessory structure. Pursuant to Section 27-61B3, an alternative design exception is an administrative review or AR permit. And pursuant to 27-61J3 of the code regarding review of AR permits, in reviewing an AR permit, City Council shall apply a de novo standard of review and shall not be limited in its review to that information, documentation, or evidence upon which the AR permit was based. City Council shall follow all applicable ordinances in arriving at its decision and may receive new evidence. City Council, after reviewing the AR permit and hearing the evidence and testimony, may either affirm the AR permit or deny the AR permit. And your review criteria are set forth, and I'm sure Mr. Cotton will point it out to you as well in the staff report at page 2. They are governed, design exceptions are governed by section 27-60, and those are the criteria upon which you will base your review. I will now turn it over to Mr. Cotton.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Eric Cotton from Planning and Development. The application is for a petition for review for 4508 East Cortlandt Street. The applicant is Travis Hills. The applicant constructed a shed without permits, came in after, was cited by code enforcement, and came in after the fact to ask for relief from the code sections. They were from the code section of 27290, which requires a 3-foot side yard and a 3-foot rear yard and a 60-foot front yard. Let me just go through a quick summary of the property. On the overhead, let me go out a little bit. On the overhead is the property in question. Highlighted in red, that's all right, it faces on Cortlandt. This is the submitted site plan. Let me blow that back up. Let's see. This was the proposed accessory structure. It was actually built without permits. It was, like I said, was cited by code enforcement. There's 2 photos. These are taken from the code enforcement file. This is the structure. And this is another, well, that's really a really poor picture of the structure. Actually, I have it upside down, and I apologize. Just realized that. So the applicant applied for a design exception 1, which is the process you go through in East Tampa. This is in the East Tampa Overlay District, requesting a reduction in the rear yard from 3 feet down to 2 foot 7 inches, or a waiver of 5 inches. Urban design staff reviewed the request, found it inconsistent. Basically under 2760 subsection E, which says the approval of an exception of standards includes conditions of approval as necessary to ensure that the adjustment granted does not constitute a grant of special privileges inconsistent with the limitations on other properties in the vicinity and within the same zoning district. The urban design coordinator determined that this was granting them specific, a waiver was granting them special exception and special standards that were not being applied to other properties in the area. As a result, the applicant is now before you on a petition for review to get the decision of the urban design coordinator overturned.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else? Any questions?
Procedural question.
If you could remove your mask.
Thank you. Mr. Cotton or legal staff, why was this an administrative review as opposed to just a variance request?
Eric Cotton, Planning and Development. In specific districts, in the East Tampa and West Tampa overlay districts, as well as in Seminole Heights, there was a code amendment back in 2010 that removed these kinds of requests from the purview of the Variance Review Board and put them into the purview of the zoning administrator.
Okay. So did the zoning administrator have any discretion? I mean, the VRB has some discretion and, you know, the 5 standards and that sort of thing. What kind of discretion does the zoning administrator have?
The code is silent on the percentage that staff can reduce a request from. So in this case, it was the 5-inch. It was determined by the urban design coordinator that due to the work was done without permits, that it was inappropriate for staff to approve the request at our level.
Is the size of this structure large enough to require permits? If it was within, you know, if it met the 3 feet and the 3 feet requirement, sometimes it's my understanding it's less than 150 square feet of floor, floor space, then it doesn't have to have a building permit.
This, I believe, exceeds the 150 square feet, but even when it's under the 150 and it doesn't need a building permit, you still have to comply with code. This structure did need a permit.
You're confident that it did, because I think it's important for the record, be clear that, you know, I mean, it might have been just a 5-inch mistake and he thought he didn't need a permit. But if he needed a permit because it was larger than 150 square feet, I think it's important the record's clear on that.
A permit would have been required. He did apply for a building permit was applied for. It's under BLD 190469-318 that was applied for, but because of the design exception of the setback issue, the building permits could not be issued until such time that council weighs in on this.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. All right. Sir, if you would like to begin, you have 15 minutes to present. If you could state your name for the record, go ahead.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Travis Hills, 10948 North 56th Street, Suite 206. I was not sworn in, so if you would like me to.
She'll swear you in.
Anybody else, Mr. Chairman? Anybody else?
Is there anybody else that has not been sworn in? If you would please stand, sir.
Yes, I do.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So good afternoon. So we're here before you today regarding the request for a setback reduction. And by the way, I am the agent, applicant agent, not the property owner. Property owner is here, and he will speak, just for the record. Okay, so we're here to request a setback reduction from 3 foot to 2 foot 7 inches for a residential property located at 4508 Cortlandt Street. This project began with the property owner, Mr. Howard, constructing a detached masonry structure in the rear of his property without a permit. He initially was cited in April of 2019 for constructing an accessory building shed without a permit. And it is, as the councilman mentioned, he did not realize that it was required for the structure. And it's approximately 200 square feet, so it did exceed the requirement for not having a permit. Mr. Howard was informed that in order for him to continue his project, that he must obtain an after-the-fact permit, a building permit. As you all are aware, ATF permits basically are applied for on work that is done without a permit. It's my understanding that the whole purpose of the ATF permit process is to give the property owner an opportunity to address the situation by submitting a permit application and construction documents typically required for a building project, along with any fees or fines that may be assessed. Once these conditions are met, the project shall be viewed as a normal application without prejudice. In this case, Mr. Howard complied with every requirement by having an extensive land survey done to address the location of the structure, along with professionally developed plans, signed and sealed by an engineer as typically required. However, in the process of plan review by the city, it was discovered that the structure was encroaching on the rear property setback by 5 inches. It was recommended by city staff with urban design that a design exception, DE1, application be submitted to request a reduction of the rear setback from 3 foot to 2 foot 7 inches. And as a note, the building plans submitted were completely approved pending the setback condition being met. Just prior to submitting DE1 application, Mr. Howard met with city staff and urban design to inquire about the status of the project and get a better understanding about what was being required. He was given the impression that the DE1 would be simply a formality with regard to this request because of its minor nature. I advised Mr. Howard that this was also my impression and understanding based on conversation with city staff and prior experiences of a similar nature. My understanding was that urban design has full authority to grant such a request and took for granted that this application would be approved. In consideration of these facts, Mr. Howard moved forward with the DE1 application submittal. In a letter dated February 18th, 2020, I received a denial letter from Planning Urban Design Department signed by the supervisor, Michael Callahan. I called Mr. Callahan to inquire about the decision. He returned my call along with Joel Sousa, another staff member, to discuss the matter. I expressed to him my shock and dismay about the decision to deny this application. I asked if there was some kind of East Tampa initiative, behind the scenes to deny these kinds of requests that maybe I wasn't aware of. I know these kind of things happen sometimes when you're changing a community and certain initiatives, so you crack down on certain things. And his response to me was, I was puzzled by his response. I was told that they didn't feel comfortable approving the request. Having been involved in a number of variances and rezoning projects, this was the first time I had ever heard such a comment in relation to a matter that didn't require any feelings, in my opinion. The points of consideration have always been based on some basic criteria, such as granting setback exceptions that are under a certain dimension or percentage or something of that nature. In this case, it's my opinion, along with a number of other planners, architects, and engineers that I work with on a regular basis that I spoke to about this decision. They felt this denial was irregular at best. Being that residential accessory structures are fairly common around the Tampa Bay area, particularly in Seminole Heights and other places, many are aware of DE1 approvals for setback reductions with more significant requests than this one that have taken place throughout the city. Nonetheless, Mr. Howard has continued to comply with the process and adhere to every known standard available to achieve his goal of completing his project. So we humbly ask that you would grant this rear setback reduction for the accessory structure of 5 inches to the subject property. We're hopeful that the additional time and expense of this appeal will at last produce a fruitful outcome.
Thank you very much. And would the property owner like to speak as well during this time?
No.
No?
Not at this time.
All right, are there any questions from council members? No? All right, thank you very much. We will go to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none.
I did have a question to the property owner himself.
Yes, sir.
If he doesn't mind.
Please come to that one. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And state your name for the record.
Marvin Howard.
All right?
And you've been sworn in, sir?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, he did.
Okay. So when did you construct this originally? What year approximately?
What had happened
What,
was.
what year?
The building been there since 1974, since we. Oh, what? Huh?
The structure.
Maybe just say a few years ago. It was a shed was already there, and we just was.
Actually, I appreciate that. That's a relevant comment. So you're saying on that footprint, there was already a shed?
Yeah.
And then you what? You enhanced it? Did you renovate it? Looks like you went taller?
No, we had jacked it up and put the, and built the floor, like put the floor around it.
Okay.
Like it was a shed that was already there when I was a little boy, because it was my mother's first
It's your
house.
mother's place? So, you know what I was saying, talking about the footprint where the concrete was? The sides of, length and width of of that structure? That's been there for decades?
Right, just when we went back, when we had started, when we had started the TED, like the jacket up.
Yeah.
We stretched it out a little bit because, along the way up.
Okay, so did you go closer to the fence?
No, sir. It's along the fence line all the time. It was an existing building. It always been there.
Okay. No, when you said you went a little bit.
No, sir, we stretched out. We went across, not closer to the fence.
Not close to the
No,
fence?
sir, this came straight across, this came across.
Okay. And I take it, somebody mentioned that it's a masonry structure, concrete block or some.
Stucco.
Stucco?
Yes, sir.
So it's not easy to move at this point. It was just a wood frame thing, we might just say slide it over, but it's masonry, so the whole thing would go into cracking and everything else, right?
Yes.
Okay. And why didn't you pull a permit originally?
Because, particularly in the neighborhood, by was the shed already there, we never had to went through that. I even had to cut the side fence down that was 6 feet when the lady over here had monkeys in 1974, and the lady here had chickens. And then when they came in the neighborhood and started just building all these houses, I had to cut the front fence down, and which I really didn't understand. So I paid like $166 like 4 or 5 times, and which I didn't understand what was, really, what to do. So then when I finally found out, I had to just cut the fence down 4 feet in the front, right, even with the house. So it was a lot of stuff that was there already, since I've been a little boy. And all of a sudden now, they said that it's some kind of deed restricted community. And, I've been living over there since 1969.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
All right, any other comments by staff? All right, none? Sir, you have 5 minutes to rebut if you wish to.
Okay, sure. I don't really have much more to say other than the fact that I'm a Tampa native, been working in the construction and development industry since '92, grew up in it, and I've always enjoyed a very good relationship with City of Tampa staff. Kind of grew up in it as a kid, second generation construction and development family, and really kind of taken aback by being here because I think I understand the process, and I'm not quite sure. It feels like it broke down on us in this. So I just kind of wanted to say that, hopefully I can go away with a clearer understanding, and perhaps these types of things, I don't know. It's a mystery to me because I know that they have the full authority and such things have been done. And we weren't really given a good explanation other than, why don't you try city council? They'll probably take care of you over there. And that just struck us as odd.
All right, anything else? Seeing none, anything else, sir?
No, that's all.
May I have a motion to close the public
So
hearing?
move.
Motion from Councilman Miranda with a second from Councilman Vieira. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Would anybody like to make a motion? You have the sample motions in front of you. Councilman Dingfelder.
Sure. I believe based on the testimony that we heard today, and with all due respect to staff does a great job for us. sometimes I think their hands are a bit tied, and we'll address that at a later date. But I'll move to grant the zoning, I'll move to overturn the zoning administrator's denial of design exception DE 1-20-30 because the petitioner has demonstrated the petition meets the applicable gender standards set forth in section 27-60, E5. Specifically, the exception does not interfere with the rights of others and is not injurious to the public health, safety, welfare. The exception provides a reasonable allowance of use under the circumstances, and the exception is the minimum possible exception under the circumstances. And I'm further persuaded by the fact that it sounds like the basic footprint of this structure has probably been within that 5 inches for a long time, perhaps decades, when his mother had the house. So the fact that he improved this structure is probably a good thing, and it makes sense to have just left it on the original footprint as opposed to rebuilding it from scratch. So with all that, I'll move to respectfully overturn the administrator's denial.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder with a second from Councilmember Miranda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. On to the final item of the agenda is item number 8. I believe everybody was sworn in. If you were not sworn in, please do so, but I saw it and you're all sworn in. So having said that, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, before you do, please, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. There have been numerous public comments, written comments that have been made available to City Council, and I just want to ensure that City Council has received those comments and have them received and filed into the record, please.
All right, can we get a motion to receive and follow
So
those
moved.
documents? Motion from Councilman Vieira with a second from? Second from?
Second.
Second from Councilman Carlson. All those in favor?
All right.
All right. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Council. Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department. This is a petition for review from the denial of an alternative design exception in which the applicant sought approval of a 237 square foot sign on the western facade and a 213 square foot sign on the northern facade of the property at 1120 East Kennedy Boulevard. Pursuant to section 27-61B3, this is an administrative review permit pursuant to which you review under 27-61J3. In reviewing an AR permit, City Council shall apply a de novo standard of review and shall not be limited in its review to that information, documentation, or evidence upon which the AR permit was based. City Council shall follow all applicable ordinances in arriving at its decision and may receive new evidence. City Council, after reviewing the AR permit and hearing evidence and testimony, may either affirm the AR permit or deny the AR permit. And the standards and criteria upon which you will base your review are those set forth in section 27-60, which Mr. Cotton will go over in more detail during his presentation. And so I will now turn it over to him.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again, Eric Cotton, Planning and Development. This is a petition for review for a property located at 1120 East Kennedy Boulevard. The applicant is Patricia Ortiz. This is for the Grand Central on Kennedy. Let me move it up some. This is the property in question. It's zone CD2, which is Channel District 2. It does have a site plan that controls the development, which is RAZ 1576. The applicant, as Ms. Johnson Velez was indicating, was asking for a 237 square foot sign on the western facade of the structure and a 213 square foot sign on the northern facade. The original approval for the plan development had a sign plan involved with it, as was adopted by council. So this was a waiver from that requirement. Let me go back out some. So these are just the elevations that were part of the adoption of the Grand Central. As the letters down here all reflect the signage that was allowed on the property. As you can see, there are no signs allowed on the top. Throughout all the different elevations, the signs were meant to be low at pedestrian level. not on the top of the structure. Again, low at pedestrian level. Now, the applicant is not asking for an increase in the amount of signage. This is from the denial letter. The column is the approved, what the signage was allowed on site, which was up to 1,635 square feet. Right now, there's 512 square feet on the property. The proposed CVS signs, which that total is way off, because it's not 1,000 square feet. The proposed CVS signs are roughly 500 square feet, and that left them with a bonus of the allowable signage. So they're not asking for an increase, they're just asking for a different location than what was allowed by the original council approval through the site plan control zoning district.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions from council? Okay. Seeing none, petitioner, you have 15 minutes. Please
Hi
state
there.
your name.
Sure. Hi there. My name is Patricia Ortiz. I'm with Ortiz Planning Solutions. My address for the record is 2810 North Central Avenue, Tampa, 33602. As stated by Eric, I'm here today representing Grand Central at Kennedy office and retail condo for an appeal to a decision made by the zoning administrator. As stated, we request a design exception to allow high-rise signage for CVS as part of our sign plan. That high-rise signage portion was denied. And I'd like to give you a little bit of history on this property. Grand Central at Kennedy was one of the first multi-use condos to be constructed in the Channelside district. The original zoning was approved in or about 2005 and the certificate of occupancy in 2008. In 2018, the property was rezoned through a new site plan rezoning to redesignate area that had been reserved for a grocery store. We wanted to redesignate that area to office because the grocery store just did not come to be. At that time, a signage plan was entered into the file. That site plan, or that master sign plan, did not specifically allow high-rise signs, so that's kind of how we got to be here today. Staff denied our request for high-rise signage based on the premise that it was not specifically allowed. We are asking for 2 high-rise signs, and I'd just like to show you a couple pictures. This is an artistic rendering, and it shows kind of an angled view of the building with both signs. As you can see, we're proposing a 213 or 217 square foot linear style CVS sign on the north facade and a 237 square foot CVS sign on the west facade. Each of these signs will be made of individually attached channel letters with acrylic faces, and a can type mechanism will be attached to each of the letters to sort of direct the light outward and avoid that splash back onto the building. As proposed, I already said that. We feel that this signage type is appropriate in the Channelside district because that Channelside district is so close to the central business district, and the urban fabric consists of high-rise, high-intensity, high-density buildings, and also because we're not introducing a new sign type that doesn't already exist in this neighborhood. The property fronts Meridian Avenue, which is the boundary between the central business district, where such signs are allowed, and the Channel district, where signs of this type can be allowed by special permission. Within this fringe area, like I said, high-rise signs currently exist, most notably for Publix and for the Hampton Inn and Hilton Suites on the properties immediately to the north and south of the subject site. In determining the sign area, we researched the Land Development Code Table 183, which gives guidance on high-rise signs as allowed in the central business district. According to that table, buildings of between 6 and 15 stories are allowed 2 square feet per linear foot of street frontage. We're well below that, and yet also within the parameters allowed by our plan development signage plan. So in conclusion, we are asking for 2 high-rise signs to be located on the north and west building facades. They measure 213 and 237 square feet respectively. They will be located on building features which are either intended for or well-suited for such signage. And we believe that this signage plan is consistent with the urban fabric of the neighborhood. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from council members? Councilman Dingfelder? No? No? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we go to public comment, I saw 2 people come in that were not sworn. If you would please stand and we would swear you in at this time before you spoke.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All righty. We'll go to public comment. You're limited to 3 minutes per person. If you would approach the lectern and state your name, and we're alternating, so if you would take this one to this side and then we sanitize it and go the other way, so.
Sir?
Yes.
I'm terrible with these things. Good afternoon. My name is Karen Hogan, and I live in the building that's being affected. Address is 1120 East Kennedy Boulevard. I am here as an impacted and an affected homeowner, and I have been asked by a number of my fellow residents to speak with you today about the request to put additional signage on our building. I'm very fortunate in that I'm a retired naval officer and I was able to be here today. Most of my fellow residents work and were not able to be here. I would like you to know that we already have 4 signs on our building for CVS. And not only do we have 4 signs on the building, but we have the most atrocious red neon hearts in the 2 facing windows of the building. So I cannot believe that CVS is being impacted by lack of signage. It is everywhere, and it is, well, I will use the word gaudy. I know that a number of my fellow residents have written in, and I would ask you to please read those emails. We feel very strongly about our building. We bought into the Grand Central at Kennedy. We didn't buy into the CVS building, the Crunch Gym building. We believe that this is a residential building and we would like to keep it as such. We would prefer and beseech you not to turn our building into a billboard. I really don't have anything other than it is a gut and a personal feeling, but it is our home, and how would you feel if you had a neon sign in your home? It just detracts from the value of our properties. And so I beseech you to disapprove this appeal. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I haven't been beseeched in a long time, so thank you.
Very good. Sir, if you could use the alternate lectern as she sanitizes that one. Go ahead.
Everything's a little bit new, gentlemen.
Yep.
My name is Ken Stoltenberg. Appearing under several capacities. First of all, I am the original developer of Grand Central at Kennedy. Started on that in 2003. Also developed Channel Club with the Publix right next door. Move this up a little bit. Great. I'm also the president of the Master Association and the Residents Association of Grand Central at Kennedy. And I would like to say, well, obviously we're thrilled to have a CVS, and the signage they're asking for is not inconsistent with what's been granted at neighboring buildings. It's also not inconsistent with what's already been granted at Grand Central at Kennedy to Quality Distribution and St. Leo University. So the notion that Grand Central, and I know this because the condo docs speak to it explicitly, is that Grand Central was always intended as a mixed-use project with a large office and retail component that's now come to life and is doing quite well. The last big space we had to fill was the CVS space. It took me over a decade to get them, but we got them. So, you know, for anyone to assert that they moved into Grand Central because it was going to be a quiet residential developments, like say in Palmacia where I used to live, and I live at Grand Central, at 1208 East Kennedy Boulevard, is that's just simply not true. Our documents aren't that way. And every single salesperson that sold the units from Smith & Associates, I can only speak for them because they worked for me, was told that, you know, this is a mixed-use, vibrant community. If you don't want that type of lifestyle, perhaps this isn't for you. So, you know, the good news is, CVS is here. They opened. We're thrilled. What they're asking for is not inconsistent with what's been granted already on either side of them. So I can tell you that the Master Association has voted unanimously to approve CVS coming before you to see if they could get this signage. So the Master Association speaks for that part of the building. The residents have their own association, which just deals with the residential pieces of it. I put it together that way so the residents couldn't adversely impact the retail, because having all that retail there increases the property values, not the opposite. And I think there's ample evidence, if you look at other cities, other places, you know, living next door to a Publix is good for real estate values. That much I'll certainly grant you is, I think, pretty obvious. So we'd ask for you to support this. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Question.
Question, Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stoltenberg. And I was a little confused at the beginning when you mentioned the different ways that you were here in front of us. Personally, on behalf of the Master Association, as president of the Homeowners Association, did this go to the Homeowners Association for a vote?
No, it did not, and it's not designed to do that.
Okay, so just to clarify, you are president, but you're not speaking for the Homeowners Association.
That is correct, sir. If I wasn't clear, I was speaking for the Master Association, where I am president, and that's the proper governing body to approve something like this at that level to come to you in the first place.
Okay. CVS is already there operating under an existing lease, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
And the lease is not contingent upon our approval or disapproval, correct?
No, it is not. What we told them was, we knew what they were asking for was going to require a variance. They agreed to sign the lease anyway, and we said, hey, we will allow you to go before the city and make your case. If you get it, that's great. We'll do what we can to help. If you don't, you don't.
Okay.
That was different, for example, with Publix. If they didn't have that big sign up there that says Publix on Channel Club, there wouldn't be a Publix there.
I don't want to get distracted with Publix, Ken.
Understood.
But can you you or your design professional put up the photograph, the subject photograph that shows the two signs in question?
Mr. Dingfelder, I want to be very clear that this is an artistic rendering. We've done everything we can to ensure that these signs are to scale, but it is an artistic rendering.
Okay. So as been placed in the record and voted to be put in the record, we have received some emails, I think, from neighbors, from some people in the neighboring buildings. I don't know exactly where, which buildings are impacted directly. One person wrote to us and said, I don't want to look out my window at a CVS, a big red CVS sign. In fact, I can maybe put that back up again. In fact, will it be red? Will it be lit? Will it be lit at night? Are there any hours that it won't be lit? Ken, you've been building these things for 20-plus years that I know of. Is there some concern about your neighbors? And you're going to have even more neighbors, I think, on the, well, I'm not sure the direction of these signs exactly, but you will be having more neighbors along some of those blocks. And, if you were building across the street, Mr. Stoltenberg, would you have concerns?
No, I would not. We've had signage up on the other building exactly where the CVS signs are being proposed, and I haven't heard of any problems or issues with it. All of the units have blinds, and For example, at Channel Club, I talk to the manager every day, and Eric Vanderlei, and he has not expressed to me that any residents have come to him with any concerns about CVS, except for the fact that, hey, when are they going to open?
Well, they haven't seen the sign yet either.
That is true. That is true. With the notice process, it's a little, I didn't make the rules, but at Grand Central, since they're condominium units, the individual owners all got notice. At Channel Club, which is an apartment, the owner of the apartment building got notice. And I don't know if they shared that with all the residents or not. I don't know. But the notices were done the way they were supposed to. Unfortunately, because they are apartments, they're just treated differently. Maybe that's something you want to look into at a future.
Yeah. And ma'am, is there any options in terms of illumination that this wouldn't, that it could be more passive in color? It's like we all know CVS is red, but could it be a passive red as opposed to an illuminated red? That sort of thing?
Okay, let me just start by saying that the sign that is lit in red is oriented towards downtown and away from the neighborhood. So it's oriented towards Meridian Street,
Okay.
and then on the opposite side of Meridian Street is a train track, but on the opposite side of Meridian Street, we have the Central Business District where such signs are allowed by right.
All right, and how
So
about the other sign?
The other sign is white, and it's on the northern elevation of the building. It's located on a building parapet, which I believe has always been intended for signage.
So that's facing.
That's facing
the
north
expressway-
and the expressway.
And that's why they want it up that high, Councilman Dingfelder, is so traffic from the expressway can see it. That's the
Thank you,
same
Mr.
reason Publix wanted it.
All right, thank you very much.
May I, are we closing this for public comment?
No,
And-
we are still in public comment.
Okay.
You'll have time for rebuttal. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please, and use the opposite lectern. Anybody else wish to speak? All right, we are now at rebuttal.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to show you a picture which shows the signage proposed from looking from the.
Gentlemen, I have a 1:30 that I have to be at. I would normally stay, but I would beg you to, me leaving doesn't mean I don't care about this. I've got to be at a 1:30, so.
All right.
You're late.
Yeah, it's 1:28.
For the record, this is Patricia Ortiz once again. And what I'm showing you here, is another artistic rendering which shows you a view from the east looking west, or from downtown looking at the site. And as you can see, there's a sign in existence for Publix, one for CVS is being proposed, and then the Hampton Inn and Hilton Suites have a sign on their building parapet. It's a linear style sign. It complements the size of their building, where the CVS sign is proposed on the elevator shaft. We're complementing that architectural feature of sign placement. So my point is, these signs are oriented towards the downtown, not towards living or residential units on this western facade. And the sign on the northern facade, this white sign, is well above the residential units of the Grand Central. It's oriented towards the north and intended to be viewed from the crosstown. And each of these signs will be fit with a specific device. It's sort of like a can on each of the letters that's going to direct the lighting outward and avoid that backsplash onto the building. As brought up by the woman who spoke in opposition for this, yes, CVS does have signage at the lower level. This site is located within the urban environment. It's very important to have signage that's visible from multiple vantage points, for people near and far from the site to see the property. Grand Central was always intended as a mixed-use condo. That means it was always intended to have a commercial element. Signage is a typical and common commercial accoutrement. And with that, I think I'll conclude my rebuttal and answer whatever questions you might have.
Are there any questions from any council members? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Motion from Councilman Vieira with a second from Councilman Dingfeld. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. What is the pleasure of council? We now go to any motions to approve or deny this. Who would like to take this?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, sir.
I'm not going to make the motion right this second, but I would speak to this just very quickly. When I first saw it and when I was reading some of the correspondence that's in the record, it concerned me, especially if somebody was living across the street and all of a sudden they've got some big glowing signs in their window. But now that I understand the direction these two signs are going to be facing, my concern is diminished.
All right.
I think one of them facing the north is facing the expressway predominantly, and then the other one facing the west is facing the railroad tracks and downtown. Downtown's quite a distance. So, with that said, I can support a motion, and I direct my comments to the nice lady who was nice enough to come down, and we appreciate your service in the military. But we don't take what you said lightly, but in light of the fact of those two directions that these are going to be facing, I don't think it's as harmful as it would be if it was on the east side or the south side. So,
Would you like to make a motion, Councilman?
I don't know. I make too many motions. Let somebody else make a motion.
All right. Would anybody else like to make a motion? We have to make a motion.
All right.
John, I thought you were the leader.
All right, let's make sure I've got the right one. 19-262?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will move to overturn the zoning administrator's denial of the design exception for application DE 1-19-262 because the petitioner has demonstrated the petition is consistent with the applicable general standards set forth in section 27-60E5, specifically that the proposed signage complements the mixed-use character of the building and does not exceed the total allowable signage for the building. The proposed signs do not exceed the sign area allowances of the building as approved through ZO3-121. The exception provides a reasonable allowance of use under the specified circumstances, and the exception is the minimal possible exception under these specific circumstances. Actually, I'm going to scratch the last one, the last sentence. I don't believe it's necessary to state that, and I'm not sure it's totally accurate. But I'll stand by the first two statements.
All right. Do we have a second to this motion?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Miranda. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Nay.
Carlson voting no, and Goods being, and Scott voting no, and Goods being absent, motion carried.
All righty. Thank you very much. That concludes the agenda, so we'll go on to information reports and new business from council members. Councilman Miranda.
None, sir.
Councilman Citro.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would like to share a very short 4-minute video at next Thursday's meeting, the 25th of June, after public comment. It's entitled, "Thank You First Responders and the Restaurants and Companies That Supported Them During the COVID-19 Shutdown and Beyond." This video is restaurant groups got together to bring food not only to Tampa Police Department and the fire department, but also homeless people, houseless people, excuse me, that were in need of food during this trying time. Mr. Chair, if you do not mind, that's a request, but if you wish me to put it into a motion, I will do that.
Yeah,
Second.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just address it, that's a request to add it to the agenda for which day this?
This Thursday.
Next Thursday, the 25th.
The 25th is coming Thursday.
Next is coming Thursday.
48 hours from now?
48 hours from now.
Will
Okay,
it
so
be able to
Thursday.
be, the question is, will your office be able to coordinate it to be able to be shown within the 48 hours?
Yes, I believe that the person that put all this together has now given a thumb drive to our AV people.
Wonderful.
All right, so we have a motion from Councilman Citro.
Second.
Do we have a second? Second from Councilman Vieira. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, anything else, sir?
Nothing further, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Councilman Carlson?
Every week I say thank you to the staff that put this together, but in particular, in light of all the COVID-19 tests that we went through last week, I want to thank everyone for keeping us safe and providing ample distancing and everything here that caused us all to not catch it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Dingfelder?
Couple of questions, and I'm going to make a motion as well. These were appeals. Are they typically, Mr. I'm sorry. Are they typically, do we typically hear these during the day, or is it just because of the COVID thing?
No, you typically, review hearings are typically scheduled. Council has an unwritten rule to limit the number of them to 2 per meeting. That's not in your rules, but that's just been the practice under previous councils. But they're normally scheduled for regular meetings at 10:30 in the morning.
So my concern is, a lot of times these appeals involve neighborhoods, and I know that, you know, in the typical rezonings and that sort of thing, we like to have neighborhood issues in the evening. And I'm just wondering if that bothers anybody else in regard to, it bothers me a little bit that we would hear these appeals during the day and the turnout is very, very light. I mean, I think several people testified, you know, I'm retired so I can come down here, but my neighbors can't be here because they're working, et cetera. Does it, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask, does that bother anybody else?
If I may answer, Mr. Chair, yes, I'm concerned about that also. I would like to, especially on something as delicate as what we heard today, I would like to hear more citizens' input.
If I can also add one additional concern that I have heard expressed, the fact that council had this unspoken or not, well, it's spoken, but it's not written rule, to limit them to 2 per hearing, 2 per regular meeting, to limit the amount of time the council spent, sometimes causes those hearings that people are seeking review from to be pushed out several months. So your suggestion, or if you
Insinuation,
it would be to be able to schedule more hearings, review hearings, to be able to shorten the amount of time that petitioners sometimes have to wait.
So let me make a motion tight on that issue. I would make a motion that Mr. Shelby and the rest of the legal staff relevant explore this issue, looking at all the pros and cons and come back to us, with a report. Doesn't even have to be a recommendation, but at least a report. What are you thinking, about a month or so?
That would be fine. Obviously, staff is integral to that.
And staff, and zoning staff, yeah.
Yes.
So in a month, do you say July 16th, or do you?
I would ask for an August date.
All right.
Let's do it at the end of July.
August 6th. End of July
August
is.
6th is going to be a heck of a date, unless you add another meeting, which we haven't talked about yet.
What's the end of July meeting?
It's a workshop. It's July 30th, but I was going to bring up a couple of things regarding that.
Okay. Well, it's not critical, time sensitive. End of August?
How about a September 3rd meeting?
September 3rd?
Yes.
I was going to request in our new business that we add a regular council meeting on August 20th and move the CRA ahead. I'll talk about that more, but we could do it for that August 20th pending.
Would you hold your motion then?
Yeah, hold it until
Dingfelder, and
I
see
have a
how
lot of stuff to talk
the
about.
calendar
Okay.
adjusts?
All right, I'll defer that. A couple of other issues that just arose today, but they've arisen in the past. One of them is the CD requirement. I think that in light of the fact that legal counsel always tells us this appeal is de novo, this appeal is de novo. If the appeal is de novo, then we don't need the CD, because we should be making our decision based upon the evidence that we hear, in front of us at this hearing here, presently. So I'd make a motion that we eliminate the CD requirement, if that's appropriate.
I believe it is appropriate, Councilman Dingfelder. We did look into it. As I said earlier, there is no legal requirement for it. It's vestigial in a lot of ways. And it is also something that's procedural in matter, so it doesn't have to wait to be part of a regular cycle of changes. And frankly, it is really a deletion of a line in the particular code that required it. So
Okay.
if that's council's pleasure.
So that would be my motion, that whenever, as soon as possible, that staff and legal and Mr. Shelby can eliminate the requirement for a CD, to bring that back to council to amend the code.
All right, Ms. Wells, do you have any comment on that?
Thank you, Kate Wells, City Attorney's Office. We are currently working on some proposed revisions to Chapter 27 to remove those items that are obsolete. So, Councilman Dingfelder, we would like to add that to
And
the other.
When would we expect that massive?
It won't be a massive one. It's not going to be a comprehensive revision to Chapter 27 because that is a large undertaking. We're identifying those items that are procedural in nature, that are obsolete, and really shouldn't be enforced anymore. So I would consider that to fall in that category.
And we would see that this summer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so I would just move to add that to your list.
Do we need a formal motion for that?
Yes, please.
We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Citro. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anything else, sir?
Ms. Wells, some others to add to your list. The case we had today, since it's now over and we made a decision, brought up an interesting conundrum. The gentleman was 5 inches off, but he was forced to go to staff. It appeared to me staff didn't have a whole lot of latitude in terms of, making that decision. So then they had to deny it, and then it had to come to us, et cetera. And I asked why, and I was told, well, in East Tampa and some of the other urban villages, Kate, I'm not sure where, that's the new process as of 2010. I think that that's not a great process. I think that instead of a staff review, that should just be a VRB. Those should just be VRB cases, just like they are elsewhere in the city. Anybody else on that one?
Anybody?
Okay. Well, we'll just see by motion. I would ask staff to consider reverting that from the 2010 change and making those types of review, VRB review, instead of administrative staff review, whatever code needs changing appropriately.
All right. We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder. Ms. Wells?
Thank you. Is your request with regard to the fact that staff felt it didn't have the ability to approve the waiver because it was for unpermitted work? Or is this a larger discussion with regard to those design exceptions that fall within the West Tampa overlay, East Tampa overlay, Seminole Heights zoning district, where it's no longer required to go to the VRB and all of those types of variances are handled by staff?
Well, no, it doesn't have to do with the building permit part of it.
Okay.
It has to do with the fact that I'm concerned by the description that Eric gave, that staff didn't really have much latitude to help this gentleman. And say that under these circumstances, and as it shook out, the footprint appeared to be, decades old, and that's the kind of thing I think the VRB often looks at, in terms of the 5-point test. So, help me out. I don't know what else. I don't want to be overly encompassing in my motion, but I do see in these kind of situations that this would have been a better case to go to the VRB.
What I recall Mr. Cotton saying is where the request for a variance is due to the fact that the work has already been performed and it was performed without the benefit of a permit, that in that situation, staff doesn't have the latitude to grant the variance, and that's why the design exception was denied. Perhaps that situation, that narrow situation, where the variance is requested for work that was unpermitted, that regardless of location within the city, that those types of variances be required to go to the Variance Review Board.
Right, and the VRB does see a lot of cases of as-built buildings, so.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So I appreciate your clarification. I would move that you add those situations to the list to let those go to the VRB instead of administrative.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder. Do we have a second? Second? Anybody?
I'll second it.
We have a second to the motion by Councilman Carlson. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
All right?
Any opposed? Was that an aye from everybody? Was that unanimous?
It's seeing, what, you can have the clerk announce it.
Could I say one
Motion
thing?
carried with Goods and being absent and Miranda being absent and
All right, thank you, Council.
Councilman Carlson?
Yeah, just to follow in that, and hopefully this can come up in our larger discussion about these issues, but I think we should enable staff to have a hard no, especially in these situations where people don't have a permit. I don't know why we waste public money and time when people don't follow the basic rules. You know, everybody has a story, and we feel sorry for them, but I think if somebody, as we talked about before, the city needs to do a better job of communicating with constituents so they understand this, and we need to help them understand other issues related to neighborhoods. But if somebody breaks the rules, I don't think we should go through this whole process even. I wish the staff had the right to just say flat no without any exceptions.
All right.
Okay, and the last one I've got here is, this is real interesting. You know, you learn something new every day when you're here. What we learned today about the AB1 versus the AB2 is the fact that the AB1 has no distance separation between liquor uses. But the AB2, which are the ones that come to us, the AB1s go directly to staff. The AB2s come to us and have distance separation requirements that either have to be adhered to or waived. I don't understand why we would have a different standard depending on the process.
I certainly have staff here, well.
No, they left.
Well, I know, that's worthy of discussion, certainly. The AB1s, as it came up today, was related to something specific. It was related to retail. I forgot the exact thing, but I guess your point is, or my point should be, those AB1s are in certain categories of uses. You may want to be able to look at those uses and see whether or not it's appropriate, given, you know, what you've experienced.
So without belaboring it, Kate, what I'd like to do is I'll defer it until the 8/20 date, the August 20th date. and just-
Actually, council has a workshop scheduled on July 30th to deal with alcoholic beverage issues, including distance separation requirements and the noise ordinance. So perhaps that would be an appropriate discussion.
Fantastic.
at that
So can you
time.
just make sure that you
I will.
roll this one in and somebody explores the pros and cons on this issue?
Absolutely.
Okay, no motion necessary there.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
No, not today. Thank you, Mr.
Councilman
Chairman.
Vieira?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few quick things. Michelle Ogilvy, O-G-I-L-V.
Ogilvy.
Michelle Ogilvy.
Man, I'm sorry, I'm way off this morning. It's my understanding she's going to be retiring, and I wanted to present her with a commendation. I can probably deliver it to her home, but I just wanted to make that motion if I may.
When is she
All right.
retiring?
Second.
When is that? Do you know exactly?
You know, I don't know.
Recently.
I read it somewhere, so. yeah.
Motion from Councilman Vieira with a second from Councilman Dingfelder. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? No? All right, anything else?
And then really, really fast, I just wanted to mention, a lot of us know Travis Horn, who does a lot of work in Ybor City, and recently Travis lost his brother, Lieutenant James Farron Horn of the Orlando Fire Department. He had fought spindle cell sarcoma for a while, and our thoughts and prayers are with the Horn family. This is the second brother that Travis has lost, who is also a firefighter, Lieutenant Michael Wayne Horn, also of the Orlando Fire Department, passed on some time ago. So our thoughts and prayers are with the Horn family, and we always thank that family for their service to our country. I know that Travis is a proud Army veteran, and his two brothers were, God rest their souls, in Orlando Fire Department. So we salute that family for their service and give them our strongest, most sincere condolences. You know, I always find that a lot of first responder families, whether they're police or firefighters or EMS, also have a lot of military service, because it's the two seem to be intertwined, which is these are folks who go into situations that most people, myself included, run away from. And so we just thank them very much for that.
Thank you very much. Anything else, sir?
Nothing, sir.
All right, just a couple of items. The Convention Center has us confirmed for council meetings through the end of August, so we'll be here for the next 2 months or so. With July 30th is a workshop during the daytime, but we have the Florida Bar coming into the Convention Center, and we will not have use of the external rooms where the aides are and other staff are at, because they need it. Also, they've asked that we keep it quiet that day, because, you know, whatever, you know, just a request. Huh?
For attorneys at law?
Yeah, and anyways, I was thinking about, how do you feel of turning the July 30th workshop into a virtual meeting? So they have complete and utter silence throughout the day, there's no issues, and then the evening session will meet here as regularly scheduled. What do you think?
Oh, that's the bar exam.
Yeah.
Oh,
the bar
boy.
exam.
If I may, I think John and I are going to have very strong opinions on that. Absolutely. And Marty, and Kate, and Susan, if she's here. Absolutely. I mean, that should be virtual. I don't know what it is that day, but if it's something that needs to be live for any reason, I would suggest that we move it to another day. But the bar exam, I still remember the day I got my bar results. I think September 15th, 2003. I passed by 3 points, thank God. But still, yeah, I would encourage that.
Okay, so having said that, we have some ceremonial items on July 30th and August 6th. If we don't have to discuss it now, but if we could revisit those and push them for a later date in August or possibly September. Also, with the uptick in positive coronavirus testing, I want to be as careful as possible, and I'm not blowing off the ceremonial activities for commendations and whatnot, but I just want to be careful, because I know those ceremonials do bring a lot of people, and considering the numbers just keep climbing. So if that's all right, if anybody has any comment.
Can't we do them virtually? Why can't we just go ahead and do them virtually?
The whole point is, you know, having the cameras and the families and the speeches.
Oh, that's right.
And then you have the people that come in and give recognition from the Columbia, from the Tampa Theater and whatnot. Just
Remember when one of the meetings we had, I remember John LaRocca was on video somehow. I don't know how.
I don't recall that.
You don't remember as we were setting up for it, he was on video and then they turned it off? I think he was presenting as a chair of one of the CHCs.
Maybe.
Anyway, if AV could do that, that seems like a good solution, because they would still get the TV recognition, and we wouldn't have to, because otherwise, what are we going to do, stack 10 of them up in 1 month?
It depends how, well, I hate to bring this up, but all the subject matter for the workshops that have been set have fallen off the map and have to come back as well, and we have to discuss that once we get back closer to what normalcy is.
Yeah.
So yeah, the question is, in terms of doing it virtually, if you want us to make inquiry about that, to do it during a meeting is very difficult to do. We're attempting to do this for this Thursday, to have somebody actually participate under staff reports virtually, so we'll see how that goes. But as of now, I've been told that we don't have the technical setup for a lot of things as a hybrid meeting right now.
So we're good with making that July 30th workshop a virtual meeting?
Yes.
If I can, I'm going to ask a couple of motions. Number one, that be done in the form of a motion, so we can start that process.
All right, do we have a motion?
And it could be reflected in the agenda, because the agenda now has July 30th as set for the Tampa Convention Center.
All right.
So
So we have a
moved.
motion from who? Was it Vieira?
Yes, sir.
With the second from? Dingfelder, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
I don't hear any votes, sir.
Aye.
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 And so that motion carries?
Yep.
Motion carried with Goods absent and Miranda absent.
Then the next question would be to the removal for the purposes of the virtual workshop of the commendations for July, the July 30th meeting?
And August 6th.
And to remove the commendations for July 30th and August 6th to be rescheduled.
All right, do we have at a future date, we'll discuss that, we can discuss it this Thursday? Or?
If you don't make the motion today, it doesn't come off the calendar. So I just wondered, do you want to save it down the road? That's fine.
All right, do we have a motion to postpone those to an undecided
So moved.
date? Motion from Councilman Citro, do we have a second?
I'll second, but if I may inquire, what commendations are these?
This is ATU is August 6th, and then July 30th is police officer of the month and firefighter of the quarter.
How far are we I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, how far are we going to push that off? Because these are people that are deserving of these accommodations.
Yep.
And as chair of the public safety, I prefer not to. Even though I did make the motion, I would prefer not to push them off. And I'm sure Councilman Vieira and Councilman Goods would also like to give accommodations to the ATU.
All right, so I was thinking September 3rd, but if there is no motion or support for it, it is what it is.
If I may, Mr. Chair, may we, because these commendations don't take any more than 10 minutes, and I think that, given all the trauma that city workers have gone through, COVID and all recent issues, I think that things like this, though they certainly take some time, are certainly worth it. Can we do this at the beginning of a night meeting or sometime in July? So I would second it only if it's not pushed beyond July, just for ATU, police, and fire, just on principle. If it's anything else, even if my mother's getting a commendation, let's pull it off.
Do you want to, because it's July 30th, it's that council workshop, do you just want to put them all together for August 6th? And remember, August 6th,
Is the mayor's?
it's the mayor's budget presentation. So, there's going to be a lot of people here.
It's not on the calendar. Should that be on? Oh, it's not officially been set.
Okay, well, do you just want to put those two to August 6th and have ATU, police, and firefighter all that one morning?
If I may, Mr. Chair, today's Tuesday, and we're meeting on Thursday. Maybe, y'all can get together and we can.
All right, we'll defer to that till.
Just 2 days, I would think.
And please consider the virtual option too. It seems like it would be better if somebody get recognized virtually in one meeting instead of having several people stacked up in person in another meeting.
Okay.
And the other thing is, in terms of the recognition, a couple of things that came up in discussion. I don't want to take up council's time, but a couple of things that comes up in discussion with planning these things is, how we had people lined up along the wall during the meetings. You had the first responders, you've had police along the wall, you've had fire along the wall, and then you've had the community that wishes to recognize them to come in and line up and make presentations to them, and then you had the family members there. Now, with that all said and done, and I understand and I respect the importance of this, and this has been a council tradition for many, many years, in terms of our setting, in this environment of social distancing and reducing the amount of exposure to people, the amount of potential exposure, it's something that, just in terms of the amount of seats that we have and to keep the social distancing, would be very difficult here. And the thing is, if you do it virtually, I don't know how you would set up the opportunity to have all that participation and all those presentations. So I throw that out for council's consideration.
Mr. Chair,
We'll just defer to it till Thursday and just talk about it then. There's
I
still
was going to give kudos and recognition where recognition is due. After we saw 2 Thursdays ago the amount of people that were here to speak on different subjects, Miss Lisa Edwards was a great conductress where she was able to bring the amount of people in and out. I think that serves as a testament that we can get things done with a great number of people.
All right. We'll just ignore that then.
I'm not saying to ignore it. I'm just saying.
No, I'm not upset.
Up to you, Mr.
I'm
Chair.
just moving on to the next item. All right.
May I say something
Yes,
just
sir.
really quick, Mr. Chair? Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. That I'm thinking with regards to the City of Tampa staff commendations, that maybe we could ask the particular departments to not bring in all the number of people that they usually do. I think that's a good compromise.
Yeah.
And then maybe if the calendar is just full and the waist is too big for the pant size that we have for this particular month, maybe we could look at doing it off-site and have all of us attend. I just wanted to throw out those compromise for your consideration, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
Whatever works, we can revisit it Thursday and just think about it, throw ideas out. Okay, beyond that, because we had to cancel the June 18th meeting, which you saw from last Thursday, I would like to add an evening meeting to the August 6th date. We have that regular council meeting in the morning, but we have nothing in the evening. And remember, we don't have Florida League of Cities, which I'll bring that up too. But would you all be agreeable to adding an August 6th evening meeting to catch up for the June 18th cancellation?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilman Carlson, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. That's that. And then if we could move the CRA meeting, which is August 20th, and move that to the August 13th day. We do not have a council meeting because of Florida League of Cities, but that conference is canceled, so it's an open Thursday. That's August 13th to have the CRA.
So moved.
I'll get to the 20th. We have a motion from Councilman Citro. Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
Second from Councilman Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now that the August 20th day is open, we have an evening meeting, but I would like to see about adding a regular council meeting on August 20th in replacement of that now moved CRA meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilman Citro, second from Councilman Vieira. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. The other items were the 4-minute video to be shown on Thursday. Councilman Citro touched on that. You have the Citizens Budget Advisory Board. I know the mayor, and it's not on the calendar yet, is looking at August 6th for the budget presentation. I would like to see, now that we have the August 20th regular meeting in place, if we could invite that Citizens Budget Board to come and present at the beginning in that 9 a.m. Regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and the last item is, I generally post on Facebook, which the discussion gets out of control because everyone likes to post and people start fighting, but, you know, I don't know what's going on in the world. I've asked people, and they've told me I've never witnessed anything like this. People that have been around for many years and seen a lot of stuff, but you know, there was a story that came out in the news with video of police being called to a call about a shooting, and it looked like an ambush. It turned into a mess. Folks running up and down the streets, blocking intersections, throwing rocks and bottles and whatnot at police officers. You know, this eye for an eye mentality really is very dangerous, and it's not getting us anywhere because the dialogue is just more and more divided instead of coming together and finding conclusions. I know it's a controversial topic. I know it's all over the news. We see this every day. I know Thursday we have a lot of people coming to City Council talking about police reform and the Civilian Review Board reform and all these other things. But, you know, they don't seem to be getting any better. You know, these demonstrations are not slowing down. The violence is not slowing down. I just wanted to bring that out there. It seems like every time I wake up and look at the news, because that's the first thing I do is get my phone and look at Twitter and everything else, it's something more and more negative. So I hope that Thursday, I know we have a lot of people coming. I hope at public comment, I hope the discussion is constructive. I know some of us have broken out into different groups and met with individuals and individual groups and whatnot, trying to find solutions. But, you know, enough is enough. And I think everybody is saying it. I mean, people are affected. They're out there speaking. But the morale with law enforcement is low, you know, from what I've heard. I've had a friend of mine contacted me 2 days ago, and she said, I'm friends with several TPD officers that have been on the force for many years, and they just want to take early retirement. They just want to get out of it. You know, I mean, it's, you know, you dedicate your career to public service, you sacrifice yourself, you put yourself out there because it's very, very dangerous just to, you know, have the morale and everything drop to the point that you just essentially give up, you know, in many ways. And, you know, we have to support our police because they are there for us. We have to support our firefighters and paramedics because they're there for us when we need them. And they're there for everybody else. That's the thing. You call 911 and they show up to help. whatever the situation is. And I know that some situations get out of control. We have a lot of people in this country in the hundreds of millions in population, and bad things will happen. And I know people want better and people deserve better, and that's what's being spoken, you know, as folks march and demonstrate. But, you know, we have to find a conclusion where we can move forward together as a people and as a community, because we're on the path to destruction, because it seems like it's just getting worse and worse. Having said that, anything else? Yes, sir. Councilman Vieira.
And I wanted to commend you for your remarks. I was going to speak to that on Thursday. I just want to say that, just very briefly, I mean, I see no conflict between saying that, you know, you can support common sense reforms that put the community first and still support and respect law enforcement and their families and our first responders. On Sunday, on Father's Day, I was out at 3 fire stations and a police station, and just talking to our first responders, there's some discouragement there, and I think that we as Tampa City Council need to be unequivocal in stating that violence against law enforcement will not be tolerated, end of sentence, period. That's it. Many of us have a very stellar voice whenever it comes to a lot of these issues of reform. I've spoken out of it. I've been to a lot of meetings, et cetera, on that, but that in no way gives comfort or aid to violence against law enforcement. What happened on Saturday at Ybor City crushed my heart and was disturbing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Dingfelder?
What I'm saying sounds rather trivial, following the two eloquent comments that you guys made. You told me to come back to the August 20th date?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, now that we have a meeting, a regular meeting in place for the month.
So I just asked staff, Shelby, and legal to come back to us with the appeal, you know, the appropriate changes or recommendations or report for appeals at night on August 20th.
Under staff reports.
Under staff report.
All right, we have a motion for Councilman Dingfelder. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we get a, yes, sir.
One last thing. A motion of council, please, to indicate to the clerk to notate all meetings in August to be located at the Tampa Convention Center.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder, second from Councilman Vieira. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Can we get a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Motion from Councilman Citro, second from Councilman Carlson. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thanks.